held you up a little bit over here. That was nice of it.
The problem is he's so fast on the straight and then slow on the corner. But I guess that's a practical.
Yep. How's the car feel with the lower tire pressure?
Feels better on the low speed, but not as good on the high speed.
Okay, so we'll leave them where they are.
Yeah.
Just leave them where they are.
Although the only thing I'm curious, is there a pressure difference between left and right? There.
Alright, whenever you want to go out. You put the snapsack up.
What comes around goes around, my man. Say hey, hey, say hey, hey. Forth and back, and just like that, you're going down for heaven's gate. Down to the right, we're going down.
Target acquired.
Eagle 1, first strike. You have permission to engage the target.
Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Well, I hope we have something that resembles a mature audience. Hopefully, we'll see. Cat is dubious. Cat is dubious. I already talked a little bit about the debate. We'll go into it some more. Cat, did you watch the debate?
Nope.
Really? Me neither. I've watched all the memes though. Have you watched all the memes?
I mean, a few.
A few hundred?
No, just a little
A few
bit.
thousand? All day. It's all you did was watch debate memes.
If only.
Old Joe. That was an interesting dynamic last night, guys. That really was. I can't say that I have in a while that I've seen somebody that was that lost. And by lost, I mean lost. Like that guy he didn't know where he was. I was on Beaten Cheeks show. We talked for like 3 minutes about the debate. Mostly I made fun of Cheeks for 25 of the 35 minutes I was on the show. So yeah. That's right. All right, guys, let's see. Yeah. Oh, poor old beloved Joe. What is going on with that guy? Guys, we're unfortunately in the time slot tonight with verbal combat, where Pastor Glenn is defending his title. So I understand that the numbers may be a little lower than normal. If she's still in the audience, I want to thank Michelle for coming on the show the other day and being a great sport. Even though I do not particularly agree with her lifestyle and potentially some of her outlooks, she was a great sport about it, and I don't know that I wished her well before we timed the show out the other day, so I saw her in it earlier, so if she's still in, awesome, very good job. Arthur Daya took quite a beating the other day, and I see that she's back. It was a great time the other day. Honestly, I felt like it was a really good show. And we've got more good stuff going on. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about the debate. I actually have some other stuff I really want to talk about, and maybe we'll get some people on a little later. I'm also not going to go particularly long tonight. Normally, as you all know, I go to 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning my time. So if we get there, we get there. If we don't, we don't. Yeah, as you may have noticed, I changed the studio yet again, because that's what I do every few days or weeks or so. I change everything up because why be boring? And yeah. So Kat, from the memes, what are your takeaways from our debate from our beloved leaders?
Biden was lost. I think Trump was frustrated. And I mean, nothing that I didn't expect. Nothing new happened.
It is really frustrating if you're trying to debate somebody who's basically responding like a 4-year-old, 5-year-old. That's it. Honestly, it made Trump look really bad, because it looked like he was just punching down the whole time, and nobody likes it. I don't care who you are, you just don't like to see that. And I didn't think it went. I think it would have gone a lot better for Trump if Joe had been a little more active. You know what I mean? The golf match. What golf match? Did I miss out on golf? Are we golfing? We're gonna have to have more information, Michelle. More information. Michelle, if you have not met Kat is my co-host. She's Kat. I don't know. I don't really know what to say. Anyway, We won Medicare. Did you know that? Or we beat Medicare. We beat Medicare. We won. What? What was that all about? That was nuts. This is a good take. I don't even know what he said at the end there, and I don't think he does either. And it was true. That was basically elder abuse, honestly. So I don't know. Biden challenged Trump to a golf match, but he'd have to carry his own clubs. I'm just saying, I want that match to happen. I do too. I bet Trump's a scratch golfer. Anybody want to take that bet? I bet he's a scratch golfer. That dude's made a lot of money on a golf course. Tell you what, you just see that happening. All right, is that enough of debate talk? Can we'll move on from the debate? I'll beat the dead horse even more, but it'd just be just like propping old Joe up. It's kind of the same thing. We're gonna prop up this discussion. So for the most part, I thought Trump was controlled himself. I think he means, honestly, thought for the most part, I thought Trump controlled himself pretty well. The only times Trump started taking shots at Biden was when Biden started attacking Trump. That's true, but I mean, even just in his answers, it's literally like if you're debating a 5-year-old and you're using big words and they're not, you're punching down. Like they're not ready. So, yeah, no, it did not. It did not. I'm more convinced than ever that they are going to replace Biden probably in September, early September, and probably with Gavin Newsom. Although I think that not everybody got the memo and they started calling for a replacement a little too early, and so that was a bad thing. CEO says that this was a master class on what early dementia or Alzheimer's can rear its ugly head as. Super sad, man. Yeah, I agree with that. I told you. You heard it here first. I knew it. I told you. Yeah, and you're convinced. Everybody should be convinced because that's what's going to happen. I called it 6 months ago. And it was just simple logical reasoning. I don't understand why anybody didn't know that. All right. Moving on. So I had an interesting discussion with a friend of mine the other day. I don't know that we will all agree on this, but I'm interested in everyone's opinion. So I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was saying that he will do basically whatever his wife asks him to do. If she asks him to pick up a loaf of bread on the way home, he'll stop and pick up the loaf of bread on the way home. If she wants a ride downtown, he will give her a ride downtown. If she needs to be picked up somewhere because they're out with her friends, he'll go do that. Whatever. If he asks her for anything, she will not do it. She will not leave the house by her. I mean, she doesn't like to leave the house and drive by herself. I kind of understand that. I think that's a kind of a girly thing, but she's a girl, therefore kind of expected or not unexpected, right? It's a girly thing to do. She's a girl. It's weird, right? But she just doesn't do those kinds of things. And I argued that I find that perfectly normal. That's what men do. That's what women do. This is just normal shit. Like, this isn't even, why are we even having this discussion? But it was a good like hour and a half conversation over the telephone, which, by the way, I don't like to talk on the phone that long, guys. I really don't. So don't do that. And unless we're talking airplanes or we're purchasing something. If we're purchasing something, I can I'll deal for hours to get that extra little bit off, but otherwise, I'm just not that interested. But it's an interesting dynamic, right? He's like, this is wrong. This, why does she do that? And I'm like, well, first of all, did you ever really expect that your wife was going to get out at night in a car by herself and drive somewhere that she doesn't know where it is and pick you up? You seriously expect that? Cat input from the female side of the spectrum?
I mean, I didn't think about it that way, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
well, I just put it really plain language, right? Like I just threw it right. Well, I had an hour and a half worth of argument to boil it down to its bare bones. It was a lot more flowery, but now it's I just throw it out there.
yeah,
So,
I mean, that
what's
makes
up?
sense. I don't
Makes sense.
I'm not going to drive late at night.
Yeah. So would you go? So let me ask this: if your husband ordered something from Home Depot,
No.
and he said,
No.
"Hey, it's ready to be picked up. All you got to do is go down there, and here it's on your phone. All you got to do is show them the thing, and they'll load it in the vehicle for you. You don't have to do anything, but it's just like going shopping any other day." Are you going to go do it?
I mean, I would probably grumble.
You would grumble and go do it.
Yeah, I'd be like, like, this is like Home Depot is a man thing. Why am I going over there?
Why? Okay. All right. Well, all right. What about the furniture store? Let's say you guys go in, you buy a piece of furniture. He's going to go pick it up, but it'll fit in the back of your SUV. So you just go do it. I need to work late. What about then? You doing it?
I mean, if it's furniture, it's for me. So then, yeah.
Okay. All right. What about picking him up at the airport?
I mean, I do that because, I don't want to leave him, around alone.
Yeah. Okay. But if there was another way, let's say that he could just Uber home.
I mean, that's my money too. So like, I'll pick him up.
See, that's the basis take of that I've heard so far. I like that. So it's interesting. I was literally like, to be honest with you, at first I was like, what are you doing? Like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But the more he talked about it, the more I was like, no, I get that. I totally get it. There's no way a woman's going to do that. Right. They don't want to pay for parking or pay for Uber or whatever. But I get that. That was a bad example on my part. It's a bad example. So
what's another example?
I'm trying to think of ones that he gave that were really that I kind of beat him up on, but I don't know. I just think it's funny because there are certain things that women just absolutely kind of like draw the line at, right? As if they don't know how to do it, right? Or they've never been there. Like, hey, I want you to go downtown to this new shop and pick this thing up. No, I didn't do that. I find it interesting, but honestly, that's what the man's for, right? Why do you, if you have to do all of that as a female, why do you need a man in your life? And if you're a man and your woman is doing all of that, or what are you doing? What's wrong with you? What's going on with you? Are you sitting on the couch? Have you fully embraced your feminine side, like beaten cheeks in his soft boy era? Depends if there's a Tim Hortons on the way. We don't have that garbage. Now that's true. This is a comment. This comes from some guy that's living in an Asian country. I know because I know that he lives in Japan. But also, this is somebody that lives abroad. Women do face greater risk of death if they face some sort of danger. True. Accurate. Oh, you can pick up the furniture in the house. I'm saying that like going to the furniture store in the pickup truck or the SUV, probably more of a guy thing to do. Got to lift the heavy objects and load them into the truck. Probably deal with some sweaty workmen. Do you really want your wife dealing with sweaty workmen? I don't know. Maybe she might. She might like that. I don't know. So. Beating cheeks in his soft boy era is going to be a t-shirt. He doesn't know that yet, but that's a t-shirt. That's going to be sold in my store. I might lose money on it just to see enough of them out there to make it matter. So I'm just going to say, well, actually, I won't lose money, but I will take a much smaller cut than normal. So didn't even say anything about my Hawk Tua hat. Here, let me help you out. Hang on. See if I can get you a better angle on this bad boy. Is that no? That's we got the wrong light. That's wrong light. Oh well. I tried. I'd expect the Home Depot or furniture to actually get done by wifey 1 out of 10 times, 10% success rate. Airport 2 out of 10 chance within an hour. See, that's the other thing. Do you really want to count on your wife showing up on time? They get distracted.
That won't happen.
Cat. Well, that won't happen.
No.
You will not pick your husband up on time. How long
Not on time.
average? Oh, you are on time.
No, I won't be on time.
You will not be on time.
He is
on
expected
average.
to be.
How long do you make your poor husband wait to be picked up?
Usually he'll be like, I'm gonna arrive at this time, and I'll forget, and then he'll call me. I just landed, and I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna start driving.
Interesting.
So like 45 minutes, unless there's traffic.
45 minutes. So you basically just say, look, whatever you're doing, just go ahead and get a coffee and a donut, maybe a sandwich, just have some lunch, just kick back, relax, maybe throw on a YouTube episode of whatever your favorite sitcom is, watch some Cops or Hill Street Blues, and I'll get there when I get there. That's what you're saying. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, that's a sad story. I don't know what to do about that. I can't do anything about that. That's for sure. Interesting. So, yeah. All right. Man, we do it faster and safer. Sure. I'd rather pay the Uber than wait 45 minutes. All right. Tagashi, does your Japanese wife pick you up from the airport ever? I'm not even going to call the over under on this one. We'd be divorced the first time she pulled that on me. That's funny. Well, you wouldn't have been married long, because I'm positive this goes back to college era. Yes, and she's on time. That's a Japanese wife for you. Just saying. We are built for it. All right, cool. All righty. Well, that was not quite the fiery it's not the fiery discussion I was looking for, but that's all right. That's all right.
If you want, I could have my husband come and you can ask him all the things that I don't do for him.
Yeah, why don't you do that? Why don't you go get your husband and we'll have a Ask Cat's husband night?
Like torture him?
Yeah. Why would you? Don't torture him. No, he's a nice guy. Why are you so mean to your poor husband? Cat?
Yeah.
Why are
I'm
you so mean to
texting
your
him.
poor husband?
I'm not mean to him. I'm the nicest person in the world.
Okay. All right.
Now he's not checking his text messages, so we'll have to see.
All right. That's okay. That's okay. All right. So that wasn't quite the fiery discussion I thought it was going to be. I just thought it was funny. It was a great conversation I had with my buddy the other day. Shutai is guilty. Yeah. Hey, Shutai, I got your message. I didn't respond to it, but I did get your message that you left on the video last week. And I didn't really have anything counter to what you said. I appreciate the comment. So I don't feel like I was ignoring you. I hope you realize that I just I did read it, and it was good. It was good time. All right. Okay. Well, that was interesting. Oh, this was funny. It's not like you live in the same house or something. And look, there he is. And he's even got his own set of headphones. It's Steven, isn't it?
Yes.
Hi, Steven. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. I'm tired, but I'm well. So I was discussing with a friend of mine the other day how his wife has like very interesting limits on things that she will and will not do in regards to things like picking him up from the airport or picking or just running errands of specific types or
I don't know anyone like that.
Or any of these other just types of things where it could be considered like on his side, he feels like that he does everything for this poor woman. He will take her anywhere she wants to go. He will wait in the car while she is doing her shopping or whatever. But like if he wants to go to say the auto show, right? She's not going. She's gonna stay home. She's gonna stay home. Go look at a car to buy. Don't care. Gonna stay home. Basically, anything that's not in her self-interest, not interested whatsoever. You're laughing there a lot, like you know this tune.
Yeah. Very familiar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very familiar.
I mean, if it'd be more like shopping, you'd have to go with her shopping. You can't stay in the car. I mean, that's not possible. You have to share the pain.
You have to share the pain. Okay.
If not, feel the pain.
That's true. That's
because
true.
she's not in pain when she's shopping. I'm in pain.
Right.
Sitting around waiting for her to make a decision.
Do you have? So I'm just a guess here because I do this with my wife. Do you have like Kobo and Amazon the reader so you can just sit there and read while you're waiting for them to pick out whatever it is that they're picking out?
No, I usually go. I look around because I'm always on my phone, so I'm just people watching.
I'll just sit there and read. I know it's going to be a while. I know it's going to be a minute, so I'll just sit there and read. I'm just like, I'll read a book, maybe two.
Maybe two books. How? No, where is she shopping?
Well, my wife is professional grade.
Ah, okay. So she has it down to like, she's going to do 50 outfits and 3 different sizes of each outfit.
So when I go to the store, I go in.
Yeah.
I find the thing, maybe 3 things, maybe 4 things, and I'm done. I'm gone.
Right. We have a list.
I have a list, even if it's just a mental list. And if it's something that costs a significant amount of money, I've done tons of research. I know that it's that thing, the thing that I want, that one thing right there. That's it. And I'm going to go. And even though it looks like it's an impulsive purchase because I don't talk to the salesman or I don't ask, I don't try it on 50,000 times. I don't take it around the block. I just walk in, I pay my money, and I'll leave.
Kind of like dating.
What?
And then that's it. And then on the other side, my wife, shopping is a hobby where she will literally just go. She's looking for nothing, does not care. Will try on a few things, not very many, but look through every single rack. You see, you're nodding as if you've heard this song.
Yeah.
And this is great. This is great.
Is there a
Yeah.
tissue? No.
Is there and then
tear up.
you're tearing up. Yeah. Well, we all sympathize. We all sympathize. And it's just what you do as a husband.
Yeah.
You show your support to be there. And how do they return that favor? You say, hey, I'm going to the boat and fishing show this weekend. You want to go? No.
Hell no.
Not yeah, right. Not only no, hell no. I'm not going to do that. And don't buy anything either.
Yeah. You come back with another gun.
Oh, you can't say that.
This is great. This is great. Now, Amazon has helped. Amazon's been a salve, kind of ease the pain a little bit.
Yes. Well,
But,
the amount of packages that we get on a daily basis.
why
it's
is she
never
nodding
ending.
so enthusiastically?
I mean, I'm like, what is this? I don't open it because I don't want to know what it is. But I'm like,
Right.
what is it? What this huge box comes? Like
I'm sorry, Stephen. I have to put this up there. Cheers to you, mate.
well, my daughter, just since she was a wee little child, like 3 years after I was born, and she was
No.
That's great. That's great. Anson and I are going to argue in a few minutes about politics. So Kat will turn into a pumpkin about that time. And
Wait, can it be a squash?
a squash, more
that,
useful.
round pumpkin.
Yeah, more useful.
Oh, whoa,
talking
whoa,
about?
whoa, 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 no.
Yeah. So anyway, my buddy was talking about how that. My buddy was talking about how he would go pick his wife up from, now they're unlike me and my wife, they're active in various like social functions. She has friend groups that she goes and visits, and they'll go out, and she'll get picked up by a friend, and she'll be at their house. Hey, come get me. And of course, he comes and gets her. And then she never does that for him. He has to do that for himself.
I have a feeling there's other things that she does for him.
Oh yeah, I'm positive that this is all reciprocated in some fashion,
Right.
but yeah, I don't know.
Although, okay, let's
What?
say, let's say she decided you found someone that wanted to go to the knife and fishing show. You found someone that wanted to go to the go look at Bass Pro Shops fishing attire.
Cat does not go to Bass Pro
you know,
Shops.
No, let's say you found this perfect woman. You'd be like, huh, why is she always want to go to all these? And she's so enthusiastic about it too. It's very odd. I mean, she doesn't shop on her own. I mean, like, wouldn't you think there's like red flags there? Like, she always wants to go.
Probably.
Yeah, so you expect what we're getting.
See, I think there's something to what Michelle says. I think a lot of women hate driving. They just don't want to do it. Oh, look at that. Look at his eyes. Are like, oh my God.
Okay, well, there's a little thing between the both of us. She doesn't. Okay, so she likes it less when I drive her than she is in. Than she drives. So there is less stress in the car if she drives and I just sit there, on my phone and do whatever. So there's more peace. So I know this sounds like, oh, he's like his simple, whatever. No.
What?
Like it's better that just let her drive. She's
Yeah.
gonna drive anyway. Put her in the trunk. I've tried this. You put her in the trunk. She still is driving from the trunk. She's tapping. You're going too fast, going too slow. So just let her drive. She's gonna drive anyway, no matter where she is in the car.
That's true.
Interesting. Very interesting. So my wife is fully capable of driving, but I think there was a period there for like 2 years. I don't think she drove. She didn't need to. So I apologize. The bat signal has gone off, and therefore I must see what's going on.
Is that your wife or?
Something to say about having peace in relationship. Absolutely. I was gonna talk about that next, but maybe we will. Maybe we'll get if Michelle wants to come up and Kat and who's out there? I don't know. I don't really want argument. I would like a nice discussion.
Just a little heat. Just
enough. I just want a nice discussion.
Slight sizzle.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Michelle, do you feel like coming up tonight and talking on the panel or no? And Based Oracle? No, I don't want you up here, man. Sorry. I'm not really I'm in a very chill mood. Oh, can't tonight. Stream while he works. Okay, that's totally cool. I get that. Why is everyone messaging me? What is going on here? I am not that much back. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Fear is a hell of a drug. Wouldn't know. You freebasing it or what? You okay? Because you talk a lot of shit for somebody that's not afraid. But whatever. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. That was boring. All right. Yeah, nothing super exciting. I just keep getting messaged from like everywhere. What's going on tonight? This is a bunch of nothing burgers. All right. So let's see. I don't like Based Oracle that much anymore. So
we can practice debating him.
I heard that. You can practice debating somebody else. We'll just get Anson up there. I like Anson. Anson gives out a cool vibe. Anson, do you want to come up? Mods, get Anson a link. I got to give them the link first. I'm really bad about like keeping my links secret. So, Stephen, what kind of doctor are you?
Don't say anything.
Wait.
Don't put details.
What do you mean? Functional medicine? Oriental medicine?
I'm sorry. I couldn't hear you. I apologize. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Kat's going to have a canary if you say something out loud, I guess. I don't know. So just for anyone watching, if Based got himself popped from the chat, I didn't have anything to do with that. That was a mod decision. I actually don't tell the mods what to do very often. They just do what they do to keep order. So I'm just assuming that comment that I saw, something taken care of, meant that Based was timed out. So that's an assumption. I haven't looked. Been too busy trying to do stuff.
Is that a cross shield in the background?
Here?
Next to the trophy? Yeah.
Yeah, this is Ephesians 6:16.
Oh, that's what that means?
Yeah, it says, hang on. It says, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. So, I
And
like.
was that given to you or
No, I wish it was. I ended up, I found it somewhere and I thought it was really cool. And I was like, you know what? That'd be a really cool thing to have around. And I had it inside for a long time. I just never had anywhere to put it. Welcome, Anson. Oh, black and white tonight. Neat.
is that
He's not timed out. Okay, cool. I just saw you, so it was taken care of. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, Anson. So debate last night, buddy. How did that? Did you see that?
Yeah, I watched it this morning. I don't typically watch that kind of stuff live because I've gotten too disgusted with, I guess, sitting through propaganda. Usually those things just sort of devolve into talking points that don't have a lot of substance. And when I watched it this morning, I wasn't disappointed. There wasn't a lot of substance. So it was funny to watch Biden, you know, do his best. He really did. He did a favor to the Democrat Party because immediately after the uh, the talking points in the mainstream media were all turned against Biden. I mean, it was kind of insane to watch. You know, watching the regular mainstream, reading their.
I think they jumped the gun. I don't think they were supposed to do that yet.
No, man. They're the ones that control the Democrat Party. It's a top down thing. The media is giving the marching orders to the party to change horses.
Yeah, but I think that again, I believe if they start to push Biden out now, and they bring Newsom in too early, Newsom will get nuked, and then they'll lose.
I don't know. The DNC convention isn't until August. They'll have another month, 5, 6 weeks left till the DNC convention. They'll do it on the floor there. He'll withdraw with some dignity. They'll have a really nice.
I understand they have enough time to do it that way. The point is that Newsom's off the radar right now. There's no reason for anyone to start denigrating his character. If the Republicans do it now, they look like a bunch of idiots. If they announce that he's a potential presidential candidate, the political machine will spin up. And Newsom barely escaped jail in California, and he was recalled once already. He's subject to a second recall, and he's being investigated. So at the end of the day, if they bring him in too early, he'll get nuked. And then all chances of them winning are gone.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're underestimating the power of the media to create a narrative around somebody, especially in contrast to Trump, somebody that's a blank slate. You know, Obama came in, nobody knew who he was, and they pumped him up real fast.
Yeah, but the problem is everybody knows who Newsom is.
Yeah, I'm not so
$100
convinced.
billion railroad to nowhere that's only like 10 miles long.
Yeah, I'm not so convinced it's going to be him though. I mean, it could be a blank slate.
They're already spooling that up. They don't have anybody else. They named what was it? A couple of papers named like 3 guys that they thought it could be, and the top one was Newsom. I mean, it's just math. You got to have you have to have a national presence. Without a national presence, it doesn't matter who you are.
Well, I don't know. If you look at the polling data on Trump did significantly worse against people that weren't Biden. Biden was his best competitor. If Biden's out of the race, Trump's actually going to have to work a little harder.
I don't think that's true. I think that's a good narrative, but I don't think it's true. When you look at him against Vivek, who went head to head, spent a shit ton of money, said a lot of really cool things. Vivek only ever got Vivek never even got within pitching distance of Trump.
Yeah, that's intra-party. I'm talking about outside the party. If you look at other Democrats that were polled against Trump.
Well, Haley didn't.
Yeah, but that's still inside the party. I'm not talking about inside the Republican Party. I'm talking about polled against other Democrats. Trump did worse.
But I mean, nationally, he doesn't poll. He doesn't poll worse against any other Democrat.
Well, I mean, all they really have to do is get a couple of the swing state Democrats who are popular in their state, and because it's not about the popular vote. It's about winning. It's about winning 50 different states. And so if they got like Wisconsin and maybe like a prominent Democrat in like Ohio to run, if they played it just from a numbers game perspective, since it's going to be a floor fight more likely than not, if they try and replace Biden, then they're probably going to be able to hear all kinds of really good arguments, and that spectacle will catapult whoever it is in the Democrat Party into a national figure immediately.
Yeah, I don't see it going that easily for him.
If you look at the history of floor fights,
this is why Kat's eyes glaze over. By the way,
yeah,
why her eyes like glazed over, and she doesn't know what's going on. This is why, because we'll start talking politics, and she just doesn't care at all. And you can stay. She can go do cat stuff, but
I do that to her every time. I'm sorry, Kat. I do that to you every time. I don't mean to.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that I don't think that there's a Democrat that they can just shuffle in that will do well against Trump. I don't believe The Rock is a Republican. I believe that he is a centrist and possibly a leftist.
Yeah, but he came out against Biden pretty early. He would be a good Democrat.
Yeah. So the most serious thing I've heard said, and the thing that I have followed the best, was the idea that RFK could be swapped in for Biden, except I think that's the media being stupid and sending out a red herring, because the entire DNC hates RFK with a passion.
Yeah.
Absolutely hate him.
Yeah, and all the super delegates who are going to pick the replacement for Biden if he's replaced, they're all establishment people. It's people that think Hillary Clinton won the 2016 election, and so those kind of people aren't going to go for an anti-establishment RFK guy. And that's just ridiculous. Whoever put that narrative out there is just spinning a bunch of yarn. That's stupid.
Right. And then it's an interesting deal from a bunch of different angles. Personally, I think that I just can't see a path forward I can't see a path forward with them not shuffling Newsom in, and he's most likely, I don't care who it is, at the end, so they maintain Biden's credibility up until that point. Now, I think the debate was rougher than they thought it was going to be. And I don't think that they intended it to look as bad as it did.
Well, I don't know. They had to do it. They had to have done debate prep, right? So there were people that witnessed what he's like and know what he's like.
Yeah, but if assuming that they knew that was going to happen, I find it very interesting that they would allow the debate to go forward the way they did.
Unless they wanted to replace him.
Yeah, but the problem is, who do they replace him with that can win?
That doesn't matter. They're going to create a narrative. The media is going to get behind whoever it is and create a narrative.
Yeah, sure, they'll create the narrative, but the way that Trump, the thing that stood in Trump's way of him winning was the fact that Biden was the incumbent. and he would just automatically get all of those votes. He would automatically pull those states because he's the incumbent, because people just vote for what they voted for before. If you pull his name off and you put another name on there that people don't know, you really risk handing the election to Trump instantly, because he has a massive energized base. He's pulling from literally everywhere right now.
And there's a lot of Democrats who would be energized if it wasn't Biden.
But not on the level Trump is. There's nobody they could put out there that could energize any Democrat base like
See,
Trump.
now you have some bias, Grid, that I think you ought to reconcile. So you do what I do, which is you actually pay attention to politics year round, right? You actually read and So you're more advanced than most of the electorate. Most of the electorate doesn't start paying attention until the last few weeks before an election.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't really matter what's happened before now. It doesn't really happen.
I agree with that.
It doesn't really matter what happens until
it was between January 1st and September. They need to lock everything in. And that's why I don't think that they'll replace Biden until September. Because that if they can keep him going, if they can keep the energy going and replace him at the last minute as a medical issue, they were wrong, he couldn't hold up, whatever it is, whatever reason they give to make, and they'll make him a hero about it too. Like it'll be a big, if he goes out right now, literally the entire world's going to point at the Democrat Party like they're a bunch of idiots for putting Biden up in the first place.
Well, no, the voters didn't know. He's declined so much in the last few months. It's unfortunate. He's doing the right thing for the party right now by stepping aside and letting someone else come in. We ought to.
That'd be a good narrative, but that would be a good narrative. But literally, all that would happen is the Republicans would publish the Supreme Court finding where they wouldn't let Biden testify because he was incompetent last year.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. So you're putting a lot of faith in people, paying attention to that stuff and not just dismissing it as
I'm paying a lot of attention and giving a lot of credit to people with very loud mouths saying very loud things that people actually listen to. People don't care about what anything Trump does in the media. They don't understand it. They don't care. You know what people understand? A doctor said this guy couldn't even stand trial. Literally every voter in the country has a relative that has gone to the doctor and been declared incompetent. They know what that means. They don't know what the fuck it means when someone says Trump is a bad businessman. They don't understand that. They know he's a billionaire, so they don't really believe that he's a bad businessman. But they will believe incompetency, 100%.
Yeah, well,
100%.
It's worse.
And
to
Republicans will be pointing to that with a big, giant Las Vegas neon arrows pointing. Look at this dumb motherfuckers over here who knew that this guy was incompetent way back when, and they didn't sub him out, and they were going to let him go forward. And the moderates will not like that, because we're not talking about moderates that are our age that would be like, that was just politics. We're talking about moderates that are a little older, in their late 50s and 60s, and moderates that are younger in the low 20s down to 18, who will literally think that the DNC is the most evil organization ever to put that poor old man up for election again, knowing back in December, or actually this time last year, I think, is when he was declared incompetent, knew for a year that he was incompetent. And it'll be in every paper. It'll be in everywhere. It'll be everywhere. That's the game this is the game that the DNC has to play. If that they had to have, so this is where they fucked themselves. They had to have, so that Biden wouldn't be forced to testify and bring in a bunch of things that they didn't want brought in, that would exonerate Trump and further impugn Biden and his son. They had to get Biden declared incompetent so he could not stand trial. Okay, they had to do it. It was on all the news. Everybody knows about it. They don't think about it very often, but everybody knows about it. So once that happened, that leaves the door open. Now, right now, the Republicans are just kind of sitting on that information. It's too early to use it. If we use it, we look like bastards because he really hasn't done anything, right?
Well, it'll be moot if Biden's no longer the nominee. That's my point.
It will be moot. It will only be moot in that when they do it. If they do it early and the problem is if they do it late, they knew he was the bad guy. That can be played down. If they do it early, not only do that we know he's a bad guy and he was incompetent, but whoever they bring in, they know the Republican Party will spin up the war machine and destroy that person. I mean, because they don't have that time that they needed back since last year to get this person in. The last ditch efforts are almost always the worst in politics. Subbing in a guy at this late a date is bad. It's just bad. Normally by now, and this was their mistake. They made this mistake because I think they planned all along to sub Biden out in September when it was too late really to do anything about it. The voters would have already made up their mind 4 weeks out. They can't get enough press out there. If they had been smart, they would have allowed a primary and had Biden win and had 4 other candidates spun up in the news, in the press the whole time. This was a miscalculation on their part. Anybody they bring in now, except for Newsom, is going to be a nobody, and they're not going to have enough time to spin it up. The interesting thing about the whole thing, I do agree with you on the Obama thing, but they had a year and a half of spinning Obama up to make him the great savior. They don't have that. They don't have enough time. It takes time to convince everyone that this is the way things should go. You don't have that time right now. I like where your head's at. I do like where your head's at. I think that you're along the right track. I think you're giving way too much credit to the DNC for being able to push that narrative in the way that the Republicans can't just simply push back. Now, will we fight as dirty as they will? Probably not, but we don't have to. And honestly, all you got to do is just let Trump loose and he'll do it for us. We don't even have to do it. We can sit back and sip lemonade and watch Trump destroy whoever they put in up there. Now, I tell you what they wanted. What they wanted was one of the Cuomo brothers to be the guy. But the problem is one of them's already in jail, I believe, or on house arrest. The other one is looking at jail or house arrest in the next couple of months. So both of those guys are off the table. See, this is why cat's eyes grow over. We're just like throwing out names and charges and crimes. I can't believe people don't pay attention to this stuff. This is important.
Did they watch Cat? Did you and your husband, did y'all watch that debate?
Nope.
Y'all are good people.
What about Michael Obama? Michael Obama could do it. You mean Michael, currently known as Michelle Obama? So the problem is that will not get the votes, bro. Will not. Guaranteed 100% won't get the votes. Plus, their entire life would be open to scrutiny. They don't want that. That whole deal is trying their best to fade into the woodwork. You haven't heard anything out of Obama recently, except for a couple of blurbs in the press, because he's trying to distance himself and disappear. The last thing he needs is an investigation, especially by somebody that's actually looking for something. So, Angel, why don't you come up? I know you've got a lot of things to say about this subject, and that'll relieve Cat. Give Cat more entertainment. No, you don't get to go. Your husband's enjoying this. Look at his face. He's happy. He's great. He's like, adult communication. This is awesome. Mods, get Angel Berber a link and get him up here. Yeah, so
one of the
Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say one of the interesting propaganda pieces that I saw today was in Alabama media, and they probably did this other places. I just haven't looked for it. But they pulled up a story about the worst debate in Alabama history today. Just so that the people who saw the debate last night can know, well, it could have gone worse. Look at how bad this one was. And it was the Jim Folsom George Wallace debate back in the 60s where Jim Folsom showed up drunk. And at least Biden wasn't drunk. And that's we should all feel good about that.
As far as we know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. Do you remember Goldwater, what they did to Barry Goldwater?
Oh yeah. Well, he made a mistake by not bringing race into that election. He should have brought the segregation issue in and thought about that some more.
Yes, he should have. But my actual point here is that with Goldwater, they did kind of a similar sort of smear campaign, but it took a long time. This is what I'm saying. The problem with your thesis is they just don't have they don't have the luxury of time to spin the narrative in the way that you think that they're going to be able to spin it. And I would agree with you if we were sitting in, if this was November, December of last year, I'd 100% agree with you. Or if they had put anybody in the DNC primary, and just giving it to Biden, just sabotaging everybody or whatever, that's fine. Right now, so look at what happens if Trump decides to pull out. He could nuke the Dems, and I can tell you how. He could nuke them by simply stepping aside and putting and endorsing Vivek or DeSantis, which DeSantis wouldn't run, but they would pick someone similar. He could nuke them both because he could just step aside and say, you know what? I'm gonna back these guys. I'm on their side. I'm gonna run this race with them, but they're the guy you're voting for. They're your new presidential candidate. And he could do that, and he would literally defang the Democrats would not have enough time to throw enough dirt and mud at them to get it to stick before the election. And he could do it because Vivek had a great performance in the primary. See, this is why primaries are important in elections. People just think they're dog and pony shows, but they're really actually important because they give you an option in a situation like this.
Yeah, and having the party elites pick a candidate instead of having the electorate pick a candidate turned out really bad. That's why there were all those reforms done in the middle part of the last century, trying to move more toward an elected system instead of a smoke-filled room system, because the party has a really bad track record of picking candidates that people actually want to vote for. So yeah, you've got a point there. There's a systemic problem with having the super delegates pick a candidate compared to having people out actually getting to know the voters.
Yeah. Well, but again, and I think that problem would really bite the Democrats, right? Because right now, if Newsom stepped in, if he stepped in tomorrow, the war machine would drag his ass so far. I mean, the real problem with Newsom is if they drag him too far, he's going to go to jail because he got very, very close to going to jail in California already. I don't know how he's out of jail, honestly. To be quite bluntly honest, I don't know how he avoided jail. I do know that he barely avoided being recalled it was very close. Angel will know because he's in California. It was very close. I think it was only a few thousand votes that kept him in office. If he had lost that position, then he'd probably be in jail right now. Angel, do you care to comment on that?
Yeah, surprisingly enough, considering how few Republicans there are in the state of California comparatively to Democrat voters, yeah, it was pretty close on that recall, much more closer than we thought we'd get on that recall, for sure.
Recall, correct?
And he's facing another one currently, so that's in the process now. He has a lot of baggage that is nationally known, even that on the stage right now. His baggage is known more than any of his accomplishments here. That's nationally. So even if they got him in, which again, Biden would have to personally step aside. The Democrats cannot oust him by force at the convention, because if they do that, all the people who would have voted for the Cenk Uyghurs and all the other primary candidates they had run are going to feel even more shafted than they do now for their vote, that they got robbed out of during their own primary. The Democrat base already feels shafted for the Democrats not holding primaries throughout most of the blue states. They just defaulted Biden in and didn't hold primaries. Hell, in Florida, they just said no primary, just Biden's automatic.
They did that. Mm-hmm.
You have to understand the Democrat base feels that and is highly upset about that. Don't let the left-wing media fool you on that. No, their base is very upset about that. And if at their convention they oust him by force, they're going to create an even larger wave of couch sitters going into the national election. So the only way this will work is if Biden voluntarily relinquishes his delegates before the convention. Voluntarily, he has to come out and say, "Look, after how I performed and how I'm feeling, I feel it's in best needs of the future of the country that I step aside for our party, and I hereby relinquish my delegates at the upcoming convention." That is the only way you'll be able to smooth the nasty, bitter taste enough out of the base to make it acceptable to pull a Gavin Newsom and put him in his place, or whoever they pick, whoever it would be up. They cannot do it by force, or their base, what base he does have. Keep in mind, Biden's base is very weak. It's not a matter of the Democrat base voting for him because they like him. No, the Democrat base is fueled by, we just hate Trump. That's it. They don't care about Biden. The base is only concerned about not Trump. That's it. They don't care about Biden. They don't like Biden. So it has to be voluntary in order for that to work for the Democrats. They can't do it by force.
I agree with that for the most part. Yeah, pretty close. Where are you at, Ant? Where are you at on this, Anson? You still have I changed your mind or given you new information, or where are you sitting now?
No, I'm always hesitant. So I'm taking my position hesitantly. I'll put it that way, because anything that's outside of the norm isn't something that is probably going to happen. And a floor fight, decades after one has happened for president is very unlikely at a convention. So if it happens,
I agree.
Yeah. And in terms of Gavin Newsom, I'm not so convinced that he would be the one that they would select anyway, because there would be a lot of wheeling and dealing on the floor, because I think that they would lose control of their delegates, to be honest with you.
I agree as well.
And I don't know. I don't know what would happen. And uncertainty in a political outcome, if you're in charge of a party, you don't want to create a situation where there's any uncertainty. But if the polling numbers are bad enough for Biden after his performance, and we'll know within the next week or so what the polling numbers actually look like, they'll have good internal numbers even if they don't publish them to the press. And if they're bad enough, they're gonna force Biden out, because Biden's not the one calling the shots. He's walking around wearing Depends. So whoever's holding his leash will say, like, look,
that opens up two interesting questions that I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you there.
No, go ahead.
That opens up two interesting questions. First, I think you're right. I think if they try and oust Biden, that's a bad move all the way around. Angel, you've got some bleed through coming through. There you go. Thank you, sir. Sorry, I lost my. So first thing is, what do you think? How do you think and reconcile what's going on with the pardon me, how do I put this, so once we've already had the debate, Biden is doing his thing. What about how do we reconcile the team that he has that's actually running the country, that's unelected, not cabinet members, not really truly vetted, but they're his team? And
Yeah.
which one of them, do you count? I mean, how do we reconcile that?
Well,
Are you talking about Shadow, like his Shadow group, like Obama and stuff, running things behind the scenes?
No.
Jill, things like that. His handlers,
Well, not just
the
his
unelected
handlers.
people around him.
Yeah, just not just the handlers, but like they're more than handlers, right? Like they're actually writing policy to some degree.
Yeah, you're talking about the managerial revolution.
Okay.
So that's
Just wanted to be sure what we're talking about here.
Yeah, you're talking about what happened because FDR seized power after 4 terms as president, and he died without naming a successor as his head of state. And what happened was all the power that he consolidated in the government was dispersed amongst all of the bureaucratic agencies he set up, and they've grown successively year after year after year after year. And that's exactly what Vladimir was talking to Tucker Carlson about. Every time he tried to make a deal with the president, he thought he had an understanding with the president, but then he heard from someone else in the government who was actually running things that it wasn't actually what him and the president agreed to was going to happen. It was something different. The bureaucratic state, the managerial state, Trump had the same thing. It was called the deep state under Trump. We're just calling it something different under Biden.
Well, I actually mean there seems to be like 5, maybe 6 people that are not security agents, that are not cabinet, and are not elected or anything else, that seem to be more or less performing the job that that Biden does. I mean, it takes 4 of them to do it, right? Because it's they can't have one person looking like they're answering all the questions, right? No.
Yeah, I don't know how many people it takes, but it's not. I don't think it's really relevant who it is. It's the RNC and the people in charge at the RNC are kind of running the show, and they're taking their shot. So the way the Democrat Party works is it's a top-down organization. It starts with the media, and the media is actually the one that tells the DNC what to do. And so, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's the media party, right? It doesn't really matter who the handlers are. It's the way that the power is really decentralized, and it doesn't really matter who's in charge, because it's been that way for a very long time.
Definitely, there's some truth to that. But it was a question I asked myself, because there was one instance that some girl spoke out today and basically told everybody what was going on, and my in the chat that I was in, somebody said they wonder if she's the one that holds the nuclear football. Right?
Yeah, I hope it's somebody that isn't Biden. I mean,
yeah, I mean, obviously she's not an elected official, so
yeah.
So but anyway, so that's interesting. I actually thought that'd be a better conversation as well. That one kind of led football there. But so, man, kind of took my. I thought that one would go a little further. What else is going on with Biden and crew that's worth talking about?
Well, I will say this though, as I guess the final close to that. The only way that Biden can be pushed aside, I guess, ousted from behind the scenes, is by the people we just talked about, the people that are really making decisions, because ultimately his DOJ do have the legal dirt on him. They are the ones who saved him from prosecution by stating he's too senile to be prosecuted. Well, they could just bring that back up behind the scenes and say, hey, listen, Mr. President, we protected you from this for all this time, but we feel it's time for you to step aside. And if you don't, we can bring these charges back up, but just in a different way. And we suggest you,
True. And I think
you
that
step
that's how
down.
they're going to get him. I think that's one
That-
way that they can push him out.
We won't know that though. They won't do it publicly, but that's the only
Right.
way you could do it without upsetting the base at the convention.
I agree with you, right? Like the only way that they're going to get rid of him is through him stepping aside.
Mhm. It has to appear voluntary to us, the public,
Yeah, it'll
but
be
behind the scenes, it was an ousting.
Yeah, he'll have to step aside. And here's the thing, I just don't think people understand. Joe Biden, he's gone, but he's not that far gone. He doesn't want to step aside. He's not going to listen to it. You're right. That's one of the reasons why they have to do something like this. If you think he's just going to step aside for the good of the party, you're insane. Like that's not going to happen. And I think you're right. I thought that they were going to find him medically incompetent at that time and have him removed for his own good. But it would just be just as easily to say, hey, you were not charged in this case because we found you medically incompetent, but now since if you can either step aside or you can be charged. I agree with that. I think that that's a very rational way to look at it. I think that that's a very I believe that could happen that way. I'm not really sure what's going on in chat, guys.
Yeah, there's some kind of drama going on in your chat right now.
Yeah, I've been paying attention. So, guys, if I can have a mod shoot me some information, that would be great. So, yeah, usually the 25th Amendment takes too long. 25th Amendment takes too long, way too public, and not a guaranteed kill. They've got to have a guaranteed. They got to get them out.
Yeah, 25th Amendment won't work either because those are all people that are a part of the establishment. And they're not going to do something that embarrasses their brand. They're going to want to do it like they did with Nixon and have somebody that is actually in charge go down to Biden and say, hey, Biden, this isn't working. You got to step down and then, apply some leverage.
What BO drama are we talking about? What's going on with BO? Is he here? Is he still here? I thought he left.
It looks like there's people in the chat that have some kind of are feeling a certain type of way about how I guess they think that BO was just kicked out of the chat and they're taking that a certain type of way. That's what it looks like.
I had a mod tell me plainly that he was not. So
yeah, I don't know.
Mod, I'm gonna let you two guys talk about it. I gotta converse with the mods. I really dislike this. This is bad radio.
Yeah. So yeah, we could talk. You want us to talk about it? So we'll talk about it. So there's the 25th Amendment's interesting, but you had mentioned the nuclear football earlier, and I did. I've talked to one of the guys that held the nuclear football in George W. Bush administration, a guy named Rob Maness, and it's actually really interesting how they have that set up to be kind of a foolproof system. It's all analog. And there's specific codes and people all across the country who have specific tasks that they train for constantly. And it's just basically like a menu set up so that the person carrying the football around pulls the menu out of the briefcase and hands it to the president and says, look, this is exactly what's happening. These are your options. Select from the menu and call and place your order. And that's how that works. And it's really kind of inhumane how methodical it is to basically destroy the entire world.
And that's done through Ensign. That's done through passcode, and Each passcode correlates to a specific type of order and armament, right?
Right.
That will
Right.
be
Yeah.
used because there's different nuclear armaments. You have tacticals, you have clusters. There's different different nuclear armaments, and each code delegates what type to where, right? If I'm not
Right.
mistaken.
Yeah, that's it. And it's basically like a Denny's menu. You pull out the menu
Yep.
and you select your cheeseburger, and there goes China. Or you select a
Yep.
hot dog, and there goes North Korea. And
Mhm.
and the sad part is that if it's the Russians, we can't get all of their nuclear sites. And so because they're like us, they've got the nuclear submarine. So no matter what we do, it's not going to be complete. And there's going to be total annihilation. And
Yeah.
anyway, that's a totally different topic, unrelated to the debate, except for the fact that it is related to the debate because the guy that's in charge of reading that menu and calling out the orders can't remember two things past 30 seconds ago. So
Yeah,
it's frightening.
that is frightening. Absolutely. Which means obviously we know that someone else will be making that decision and just whispering it into his ear. It won't be him.
Yeah. Well, and see, the problem is that if you whisper something into his ear, what's the likelihood that he's going to repeat it correctly?
We've seen that as well. Yeah, he has an earpiece on all the time, and he still messes that up. So, so yeah.
And it's a high stress situation too. And he may be taking one of his required daily naps that they can't wake him up from.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
After having a prune juice smoothie and his oatmeal. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's something where it's a matter of minutes because by the time that the other nation has their ICBM in the air, you've got a limited amount of time to get the appropriate response. And it's just people don't understand the logistics of how that works. You actually have to be a fully functional adult in charge of all of your faculties and be a reasonable person.
Yeah, because it's only a matter of minutes now. With the speed at which interballistic missiles build up speed and travel now, it's only a matter of minutes, even if their country, like Russia, is across the sea, across the ocean. So you don't have much time.
Right, and the anti-ballistic missile systems, like I think it's the THAAD system that they have all on the left coast. Those the error rate for those is ridiculously high.
I was going to say it's ridiculously high. It's almost not. It's not a reliable system.
Yeah, I mean that almost have to send 4 of those for each ICBM that was shot, and there's not. We don't have the inventory for that. It's giving people a false sense of security, which the government's really good at, because apparently it's their job to provide security in exchange for our freedom, but they do a terrible job at both. Arthur Daya, I think she put another thing about the 25th Amendment. Their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties. Okay, so you'd have to assume that Kamala Harris and the other cabinet members are going to do the right thing instead of do the politically expedient thing, which is sweep it under the rug until they force them out. I mean, the 25th Amendment allows for it, but that doesn't mean that it's going to happen. I agree that the potential exists, but the political reality probably doesn't. What do you think about that, Angel?
No, as I said before, an ousting of Biden has to take place through pressure behind the scenes. It cannot be seen as public. The Democrat base, if it's made public that his own party used the 25th Amendment on Biden but didn't use it on Trump while Trump was in office, will cause a massive backlash of the Democrat base. The Democrat base will see that as, well, if you could do that to Biden, why didn't you just do that to Trump when we were asking you to do that in the first place? You can't do that. If they do that, there will be a massive Democrat backlash. Well, they'll just sit out the election as a sign of rebellion. They'll just couch out and not vote.
Yeah, and
so I agree that would feel them not doing it because they're going to weigh that. They would weigh that, they would weigh that behind the scenes and go, if we do this, though, won't our bases throughout the states question why we didn't just use our authority, this kind of authority on Trump?
Yeah, and that kind of arbitrary application of law, that's what you're talking about. It's because
Yeah.
we have rule by man instead of rule by law. If we were
Yep.
following the actual law of the Constitution and the people in the positions of power that had the authority to exercise the 25th Amendment, if they were actually following the law, they would exercise it now.
Absolutely.
But
Well,
we
they
don't,
would
we
have
don't have.
exercised it 8 months ago.
Yeah.
But as we can see right now, the law is now being applied in a way to rid different sides of opponents now. So clearly the law is now being exercised as it was meant to. It's now being exercised in a way that's expedient and meant to expedite power, levels of power, I should say. So
Yeah. Greg, did you figure out the chat problem you were having?
Not really. I think I kind of have a hand on it, but I don't really know. I have an opinion, and I'm gonna see how things hold out. If not, then or I'm gonna see how things go if they start going really sideways and start. We can't distract from the topics, guys. I don't really care what what else goes on. We can't distract from the topics. So, River of Hate. No, we're not really talking about his dementia. We're talking about how they're going to get rid of him to install an actual president going into 2024. So we'll see how that works out. I don't really. I've been watching this for over a year. To be honest with you, I personally thought that they were going to replace him with Kamala in year 2. Prior to it being, what was it, like 36 months or something like that they have to he has to serve so that she would not be so she would be able to run for 2 full terms. So I thought the original deal was that basically a month after he had served long enough that she could be elected serve 2 terms. I figured they'd find something health wise with him, and she would be in. The problem is that Kamala has even more skeletons under her closet than, well, pretty much anybody. So she was not a viable replacement. They made a mistake letting her run as the VP. So I think you guys are giving the DNC way too much fucking credit for understanding how all this shit works. They've been fucking up by the numbers. They had Chris Cuomo and the other Cuomo literally lined up to be the next the running mate VP or to actually take over for Biden. And one of them's in is he on house arrest or jail? Because I haven't checked lately. Is he on house arrest?
Yeah, I don't follow celebrities going to jail.
Are you talking about Governor Cuomo?
Yeah, Governor Cuomo.
No, he's not on anything. He wasn't charged. He didn't face anything down. And his brother Chris, obviously, he's out and about doing his tour run now of trying to be redeemed. He's on his redemption tour right now. So in the media,
he rebranded as anti all of the stuff that happened during the unpleasantness of 2020.
All right, I'm going to hold on, guys. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
We seem to be having some misinformation, disinformation of our own going on, and here's what's going on. Based Oracle, are you here? Let me see if you're still here, you fucker. Stand up. If you stand up, pay attention. Stand at the line, Marine, or go the fuck home. Are you here? Or are you just going to hide like a little bitch? So, all right. So here's the thing. Based Oracle's weaponizing Jack, just another Canadian or whatever he calls himself right now. He's weaponizing Jack to push or bait Andrew into a debate for tomorrow night. I don't believe Andrew would hide from a debate with Based Oracle. He would be announcing it every fucking where. And it's since Base knows that Andrew comes into this channel quite often, he's decided to weaponize Jack to come in. Jack's been spewing a bunch of bullshit. Jack, I'm sorry, buddy, you're wrong. I don't care if Andrew said find God to Based Oracle. I would tell Based Oracle, go find God, because you need it. Cam the King, I didn't say shit. I said, as far as I know, Andrew does not have a date or time for the debate. And we've all known that. This has been the fucking week that Andrew asked politely. I have the receipts where Andrew asked politely to Base to give the date and time. We were going to get Glenn out there, but we're not going to do it without a date and time. Well, Based Oracle is not a fucking debater. He's a dumbass on the internet with a microphone. He's worse than I am. And that's hard. I'm a dumbass with a microphone. At least I know it. So anyway, so he's weaponized Jack. He's come in here in my fucking stream and fucked my shit up. So you know what, Based? You are fucking banned from this channel. Fuck off and die, you dumb son of a bitch. Mods, make it so. I don't normally do that, but fuck that guy. And anybody that brings his name up is getting a ban too. Banned. All right, now I want to get back to my stream. I was having a good night. I love talking politics. I can argue politics for hours, but this kind of bullshit right here is the shit that I will not tolerate, period. I apologize, guys. You guys are doing great. There's nothing against you. I just had to take a moment and deal with business.
Yeah, don't feed the trolls, man. Just ignore them. You know, if you feed them and get mad at them, then you build a bridge for them.
Yeah, you just got to kill them. You just got to kill them. Just kill them. Got to go. All right, guys. I apologize for that. In general, yes, no making fun of him. We do not. He is persona non grata. Doesn't exist anymore. We do not feed trolls. We do not acknowledge trolls exist. They are missed and gone.
Excommunicata. Right there.
All right, so gentlemen, I forgot where the fuck I was. I apologize. I really do.
I think you were talking about how pineapple belongs on pizza.
Pineapple does not belong on pizza. Pineapple does not. And my kid likes pineapple. Actually, my kid used to like pineapple on pizza, and now he hates it. And every now and again, I'll buy it just to piss him off.
But you were talking about how the DNC is given a little too much credit for what they're doing behind the scenes. And that's when we started talking about the Cuomo brothers and things like that.
Yeah, 4-dimensional chess.
All right. Fuck. Cam the King, what the fuck are you talking about? Andrew literally asked, where's the time and date? Base sent. I have a fucking copy of what Base sent back. Don't play with me on this. I've been in since the beginning. I know more than probably most. Based Oracle is a lying son of a bitch. He's been caught lying repeatedly. And I don't deal with liars. You guys have seen that, right? I don't deal with liars. You lie, you're gone. So, Cam, I don't understand what's going on. You know, if you don't like him, or if you don't like Andrew, look, here's the thing. I want to tell you, Andrew's never lied to me. Based Oracle's lied to me. That's all I need to know. I honestly don't give a shit if Andrew doesn't want to debate Based Oracle. Who gives a flying fuck? It's his damn life. Why do we give a shit? All I care about is right now, this is taking 10 minutes out of my damn stream. It's a constant bunch of bullshit. So
now I got a question, Grid.
Yes, sir.
So I don't pay attention to modern culture, and I don't really know what the term cap means in the context that it was
lie.
used. What does
means lie?
Oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's not nice to call somebody a liar unless you can back it up.
Yeah, I am definitely not lying. Oh, I remember what I was saying. I think you guys give the DNC way too much credit for being smart. They had the Cuomos lined up. One of them's in jail. The other one's about to head to jail. So
I can understand that. I can understand that, that you would feel that, these guys in power have shown so much incompetence. There's no way to really give them any credit. I can definitely see that.
I mean,
However, though,
the clock, broken clock's right twice a day, but
right. However, though, I as much as I want to agree with that, I really do, because it would be so much easier of a pill to swallow. You gotta understand it. The uniparty here hasn't remained in power for as long as it has for no reason, because they are stupid. If that's the thing. So I would love to be able to discount them as fools, all of them, right? And you are going to have fools. There has to be sacrificial pawns within the group to oust when you do make mistakes, right? You got to have them.
See, here's my problem. I've been a part of large organizations before. There's no way that it works as well as we seem to think the DNC operates, or the unipart. Considering RNC and DNC the same as a uniparty, it's too many moving parts, too many people, and too many people vying for the power for it to be. You can't keep a secret that big.
Well,
right? You just can't.
What feature? So the Republican Party and the Democrat Party are the same in this aspect that you're talking about. So the reason why that organization is having trouble, and why the RNC had trouble, and why it was so easy for Trump to just sort of walk in and bust up the entire thing, was because it's built on a structure of people being loyal to who's in power and being yes men all the way up. And that's how you gain more power, is to just agree with whatever above you says. Keep your head down, don't speak up, and just keep the system and the status quo as it is. Because if you pull against the inertia of what the people who want done, then you'll get kicked out of the system. And so it's basically a yes man system. And when you reach to the top, it's not necessarily because you have value because of your ideas or your original thought, or because you're a strong thinker, like an Elon Musk type. You raise to the top of these organizations because you have no scruples, right? And those people aren't necessarily the best decision makers. And I think that's a problem with both the RNC and the DNC. Is in order to make it to the top, you basically have no self. If that makes any sense. That's why these people are vacant. A lot of them are vacant who make it to the upper echelons of power.
And that's why we have the military industrial complex running our system as it is, because ultimately you have to have the yes men that make it up to the top, who are willing to have them in their ear, do enough of what they want to do, while you appearing as though you are a decision maker when you're really not. And I think that at the end of the day, that is the game.
Is it going to read? Sorry, didn't read. My bad. I'll read it, Mr. Boulay. Cam the King sounds like BO is trying to find. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he definitely backed out, and he's right now he's trying to make it look like Andrew backed out, which is a lie. And I misread your comment, so I apologize for that. I mean, I misinterpreted. I read it correctly. I misinterpreted it. Mr. Boulay sends in $10 on a super chat. SCOTUS overturns Chevron deference. Looking forward to Gun Owners of America, Firearms Policy Coalition, and Second Amendment Foundation going after the ATF. Save a dog, abolish the ATF. We should, in fact, abolish all three-letter agencies and the police forces that they have, which is always an interesting thing. Why does the IRS exist? Because we have a Department of Commerce. Department of Commerce should be the ones collecting income tax. It only makes sense. They're the Department of Commerce. It's what they do. And yet, we have a completely separate organization with very little oversight that collects income tax, that has their own police force, that it has the
IRS is the most powerful law enforcement agency on the planet.
Yes, they're the least accountable law enforcement agency in the country. Which means that, and by that I mean that they can roll up, say that you owe tax money, sticker up your vehicle, tow your vehicle off, and you have to go to court to prove that you don't owe them tax money. And that's pretty scary. They have actually been sued enough lately that I think they're a little calmer about that now. But there for a while, they're doing a great disservice to the men and women of the United States. So Chevron deference essentially means that it is that they acknowledge, if they grant Chevron deference, they basically acknowledge that it exists and that it is standing or has standing, and therefore they don't need to hear it. So if they give Chevron deference to, say, the laws banning suppressors, that would fine for the ATF. The ATF would then win, without having to actually go through court. The ATF would win, and the court did not grant Chevron deference, and is in fact hearing the case.
Right. As of right now, as of that ruling, that now means that the three-letter agencies like the ATF, bureaucratic agencies that used to be able to make pseudo laws, now can't do that. They now have to go running through Congress. Congress has to now approve those things now. That's what it stands as now, but
they can still do it, but those laws can be challenged and more easily defeated.
Yeah, because before they couldn't be really.
Yeah,
the
Chevron ruling was one of the main ways that regulatory capture accelerated, and it also expanded the power of the executive and took it away from Congress, because Congress basically yielded to the executive branch to make law.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and so this is just returning some of the balances to the co-equal branches, but I don't think it's going to be. It's still not a good system. Like it's basically like, that they recognize that it got out of hand a little bit, but it's temporary because it's just the judicial branch trying to protect the power of the legislative branch. The legislative branch has to protect its own power. It can't rely on the judicial branch to do it for it. And the legislative branch can fix the Chevron issue anytime it wants, but it doesn't want that. It wants the executive to continue making the laws so it can, it's easier for them.
Its shoulders and say we didn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's removing accountability. So I think if anything, Congress is going to try and fix this back so that the Chevron deference
Well,
goes
Chevron
back into
deference
place.
is for each case.
Yeah.
It has to go in each case. So I don't think Congress isn't going to be willing to do anything.
Right. And these issues come up all the time in law. If you actually read the laws that they write, like Obamacare, when that came out, there were lots of provisions in there that the Health and Human Services, secretary would write all of these provisions, and basically that was what Nancy Pelosi meant by you got to pass the law to see what's in it, because they didn't know what was in it because the Congress deferred all of that to the agency.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that with tax law all the time too. And it makes it kind of complicated. And it's unnecessary. We don't need legislative and judicial branches in all three branches of government. And that's basically, the administrative agencies, they have a legislative branch and they have a judicial branch. There's a whole subdivision of judicial law that's just practiced in the administrative agencies. And that's the opposite of the way our system was designed to work. It's supposed to be co-equal branches, and it's not what we have.
That is
Cam
true.
King right here. He's referring to the 78,000 agents that were approved in the last billing cycle. And the Democrats passed that off as saying, well, that's just to go after the rich. No, that's meant to go now start going after the middle class and the lower middle class. You don't need that much enforcement for the rich. You need that when you're going after a wider base.
You have to ask why the IRS has a SWAT team.
Yep.
Why? What? Why do they have a SWAT team? That's crazy, man.
Yeah. Since
that's nuts. That's the kind of nuts that's that shit's got nuts in it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I think all three-letter agencies ought to be basically abolished.
That's a good libertarian position right there.
Well, mainly because it's not in the Constitution, man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's because the people who wrote the Constitution, were libertarians. So,
yeah. Unfortunately, libertarian right now means leftist, so I can't be associated with it.
Yeah, I'm not associating with their presidential candidate. I associate with them, but not the candidate.
So have you seen what happens when people have asked on either streams or on TV what do the libertarians think of what's his name, Chevy something?
Chase Oliver?
Chase Oliver, thank you. I knew it was something cool like that. Chase Oliver. So I guess he's a pretty big leftist, and nobody wants to admit that. Nobody wants to admit that in public.
He's a huge leftist. He's a degenerate. He's in favor of transitioning children.
Yep.
I mean, he's it's just insane. And I don't know. I can't affiliate with him. So
I think there's some states now that are coming about that are now having a stronger, like New Hampshire has a strong local libertarian presence now in their state house now and their state senate now. So libertarians can make progress at the local level. It's just that the national embarrassments are what take them off that stage and take away any attention they have at their local levels. That's a problem.
A true libertarian party would be running for locals anyway, and
that's what it should be,
and not care about the federal, because at the federal level, the libertarians are just going to get hammered anyway. But they can make the most impact at the local level. The interesting thing that I have is that everybody's like, well, the deregulating or getting rid of the three-letter agencies is pretty libertarian. I'm like, no, I don't think it is. But here's the thing. Why do we have them? The EPA serves nobody, right? The EPA serves its own ends, and its own ends is to keep itself employed. And that therefore they find things all the time that have been fined for hundreds of years. And all of a sudden, it's a problem. Same thing with the FAA. The FAA finds things all the time that it's never been a problem before, and all of a sudden, it's a problem. The FAA should only exist for commercial aviation. Why are you hassling and causing all of this expense for private citizens? I've never gotten that. I've never understood that. The FCC, again, why are you regulating radio communications between citizens? Okay. Why? It's a stupid thing to do.
Well, you're not smart enough. You see, the bureaucrats, they know what's best for you, and plus, if they don't find more things to do, then they can't increase their budget and they can't hire their friends.
See, that's an excellent point. It's just like the FDA, right? The FDA is the most bloated, ridiculous organization that you could ask for. It has branches. There's branches of the FDA that nobody even understands what they do. Why? Like, it seems like just such a weird thing.
It works like that for law enforcement too, Greg. Major metropolitan police forces operate the same way, where if you don't find enough infractions or crime taking place,
Yeah.
your budget is reduced.
Well, that's how the crime rate is computed. And when people always tell me the
Yeah.
crime rate went down, I just think that, well, that just means that nobody's calling the cops because
Yeah,
they just gave.
absolutely.
But
Yeah, the crime rate did go down in El Salvador.
Oh yeah, yes, it did.
But at the risk of sounding, just kind of contrite, right? Like just trying to be a dick, and I'm really not. But at the risk of attempting to sound like that, when you have so we already have the what is this? Not FDA. It is Department of Agriculture. The Department of Agriculture already regulates how our food is grown, how it's handled, and how it's processed. Why do we have an FDA? Well, maybe you could talk about, well, it's a drug thing, right? Like, so you need to have some control over the medications that are released into the country, and that makes sense. But are they really doing that?
Well,
And
it's
also, why have they now expanded not only into the drugs but also the procedures?
it's cronyism.
It's creep. It's just creeping. It's just a creeping vine, right? Like, well, nobody actually has control over what medical procedures doctors can practice, but somebody should, because some doctor somewhere could do something, for free, and we can't have that. So,
Why does it have to be the government?
right? Why is that?
Yeah, well, it's because
Well, it
it's
never
because
was before. It never was before.
yeah, yeah. If you like go back and look at like the genesis of these agencies, it came from like physicians or people in specific industries trying to get barriers to entry so that they could not experience competition in their
Mhm.
market. And that's what a lot of this is from. That's why we've had dwindling numbers of like meat processors. They're all controlled by these massive corporations that are protected by endless regulations that prevent startup companies from actually competing with them. And that's across all settings where these three-letter agencies exist. Is the actual free marketplace has been stifled. Innovation has been stifled because of it.
Joseph, who I'm not sure I've seen you in the chat before, so welcome. Someone he is asking for someone to remind me of 2019 through 2020. Sorry, I have to pay more attention to the chat now, so I am kind of bouncing between. And we all know what happened between 2019 and 2020 and 2021 and a half. We all know what happened, right? The FDA ruined our lives, right? And it's an interesting thing. I've never really understood why we want the .gov in our lives so much. Because I don't. I really don't. I don't need a seal on something to tell me it's good food, right? Like I can see it, smell it, touch it, taste it. You know, I know that there's a Department of Agriculture that maintains a standard. The farmers themselves, you know, are generally very good people about it that way. And I mean, there's enough steps there that I don't know that we need an FDA to protect our food. As far as drugs go, we already have medical boards. We already have, and all the FDA really has done is promote pharmaceutical companies and the lock, stock, and barrel holds they have on the various markets, right? Like Pfizer would not exist if it wasn't for the FDA, right? It just wouldn't. So it's an interesting thing. 3-letter agencies are sometimes just not, you know, not what you want them to be. So
I say it's because of the fact that, again, for me, this just simply, from what I observe in the world, this comes down to culture again.
mm-hmm.
And we've relinquished what used to be a cultural duty to the government instead.
Well, we didn't
these three
relinquish
agent,
it. They took it, right? Like it was just creep. It's just one day you're
yeah,
told,
we could say it was just taken, but we could have always had a push to try to take it back, and we don't have the will to do that. So, because the issues that we see with these 3-letter agencies is that they are there to enforce things like you were just talking about, like for food, for instance, right? How they're supposedly there, like, to make sure that people aren't serving poison food or rotten food, things like that, right? Well, we don't need a 3-letter agency, like you said, to do that because we could observe that, right? That would be a cultural enforcement. We can enforce that at the cultural level. We don't need a government agency to do that. However, that's what they're doing. Doing now. The same thing with medical boards, right? They're there to enforce ethics, right? Well, ethics are a cultural issue, not a state issue, not a government issue, right? It's supposed to be culturally enforced. Ethics are supposed to be culturally enforced. So, unfortunately, this goes back to the whole thing that Andrew said, and you said a couple of days ago about will, fat and happy. And when you're fat and happy, you are willing to relinquish cultural duties or allow them to be taken from you easily and then not fight for to get them back. And that's the problem.
So I put a note in the chat. There's a book that I like by Patrick Newman called Cronyism: Liberty versus Power in Early America. He wrote that as kind of like an explanation of how we got to where we were up to that point with getting away from our founding. And he's working on a second book where he's touching on a lot of the topics that Grid has been discussing, specifically related to the formation of the agencies in the 20th century, and how, like in detail, naming names and listing off the different businesses that benefited from the formations of the agencies, and how it's a dual feeding system where these businesses get bigger and then they support the election of specific elected officials to continue growing their businesses, and the incestuous relationship between businesses and government. And it's actually, the system of government that we have now isn't what we had when we were founded. It's more akin to a fascist government, because in fascist economic systems, fascist political systems, there is a heavy regulation of industry, but it's technically a free market. And so we're actually more of a fascist system, and that's kind of difficult to say because people associate fascism with Europe in the early middle part of the last century instead of what it actually is, in detail, which is one of the hallmarks is that regulatory capture that we have, and people don't associate fascism with that, but that's exactly what it is.
Right. The problem is it's going to be very difficult to fix it, right? Because people believe the Food and Drug Administration has your best interest at heart, when in fact that is the furthest thing from the truth. They limit the surgeries that come in. They limit medicines that could save your life. They limit procedures that doctors can do. They limit a bunch of things. They even limit the even the drugs that would help you live, if it makes it cost more, they will make it a prescription drug and put it behind the counter, and you can't get it. So in China, for example, you can walk into a drugstore very cheaply, buy amoxicillin, bunch of other antibiotics and other drugs. Now, narcotics, no.
Why not?
Huh?
Why not?
Well, they have a very like strict non-narcotic policy. I think it has something to do with their opium problem back in the last century. So, matter of fact, if you're caught selling or using drugs in China, you could be executed.
Yeah.
So that's always a
And
risk.
Greg, now you just said that it can be executed, which would be the government part of it. But like you said, your wife is she's from the culture, right?
Yeah.
So when you go out there, based upon all your travels out there, at a cultural level, is it frowned upon, or is it seen as even worse than being frowned upon?
It's
Okay.
pretty frowned upon. The idea of somebody doing drugs is really, really like.
So it is culturally stigmatized as a negative thing out there, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's if you can. So what my opinion of most of China that I traveled in is kind of equivalent to like America in the American like the 50s. People dress reasonably well. Poor people are poor. Wealthy people are wealthy. It's not real, there's an in between, but but you can tell. You can tell the in between. And it just seems like, it seemed like and it's exceedingly capitalistic. It's it's the most capitalist place I've ever been in my life. Like, except for their government, they're very capitalist. And it's an interesting thing. If we want to talk about China for a second. So I was in Shenzhen. I don't speak the language, right? My wife does because she's Chinese, but I don't. So I was able to travel by myself, figuring things out by train to a mall, pretty big mall. And it's interesting because they have the malls are multi-level and they're built into the subway stations are in the at the bottom of the mall. So the people come out, they take their train to work, they take the train home, they get off the train right there, right out of the train, there's a grocery store. What could be easier? They get their food, they go up the stairs or escalator or whatever, and there's a mall there. They can buy clothes, they can buy whatever they need, and then they go to their apartment or house or whatever, mostly apartments. And it's very easy and it's very convenient, and they don't even need cars. They have a very interesting life. And so I went to this mall. It's ridiculous mall. They had a Bentley dealership, which is hilarious. And it's just a very interesting. It was just a very strange thing to get out of a subway and go up an escalator, and there's a mall, and there's another layer and another layer. And it's, how the old department stores used to be like, third floor sporting goods, fourth floor electronics, fifth floor kitchen. Yeah, it's exactly that. I mean, 100%. Like, you get off and it's not an entire floor of nothing but sporting goods or whatever, or men's clothes or whatever. It's really cool. I liked it, actually. And nobody hassled me. Everybody was very polite. Like, even when people were getting on and off the train, they were very polite to each other. And it was very interesting for me, having just come from at the time I was in Colorado, and I had to fly through California, which meant when I went into California, it's the worst customer service on the planet, I believe, exists in California. I think they go out of their way to be that terrible. I could be wrong. It could just be natural talent, but I think they train. I think they train up for it. But
Do you think it's the cultural difference in that the people in our society are so focused on themselves that
yes,
they're more selfish, and the people in their culture
we're
have
100% more selfish.
yeah.
We are 100% selfish. So let me give you, and I can roll into that. So my my wife's grandmother was old and she had health problems. So they would actually hire cousins, poorer cousins that lived out in the farming areas to come into her house and live there as her nurses, right? They learned from real nurses that to take care of her and do what she needed, and she would literally these girls would literally live there. There were two of them, and in return for living there and taking care of the grandmother, they went to their school was paid for locally because you have to pay to go to a higher education just like here. If you can't test in, then you have to pay. They didn't, obviously didn't test in or didn't go to a good enough school or whatever. So their education was paid for, their clothes were paid for, they received an allowance. Obviously all their food was paid for. They had a place to live, and all they had to do was just take care of their. I'm not really sure what their relation was. They were cousins of some kind, but somebody's grandmother, and they were happy to do it. And here wouldn't be the case at all. And during when her grandmother was really very sick, while I was there, literally the half of the family was living in this woman's apartment. I visited, and we spent a weekend in that city. It was really terrible. I mean, it was really, really terrific to see how like everything worked, right? Like it's not how it's how it used to work here. We don't work that way anymore. We talked about this a little bit the other night. And it's a very interesting dynamic that our family structure has been broken down so much. And it was just interesting. So then so in Shenzhen, I was by myself. I went everywhere. The only place that spoke English was Starbucks. The only place I could go that spoke English. And so I drank a lot of coffee. So it was interesting.
Yeah.
But you would just walk by. Go ahead.
I was going to say that, that's the same way it was for me as well. And it still is to this day for my last grandparent, my grandmother. Mm-hmm. She's 83. Same thing. Two cousins and an aunt live with her and make sure she's taken care of at all times.
Yeah. Why would
she inherited my grandfather left the empire to her. She's taken care of for the rest of her life in terms of she never has to worry about anything financially. But there's still always family around her. Even if she doesn't need it, they're still there for in her later years to make sure she's taken care of and anything she doesn't have physically, right? It was like that for all my grandparents. I participated in that with my dad's mother until she died. I was like that too. I took the duty on, and I was taken care of in that way for it until she passed, and then of course I moved on. And the Arab side of the family, same thing. The Latino side and the Arab side is the same, very similar structure in terms of duty and charge when it comes to the elders. And the nest, we call it the nesting mentality. My son is continuing that. He wants to have a nest. My youngest brother, he wants that same thing to happen, full nesting mode. So it is, like I said, this is why I harp on culture so much, because I'm American first. Don't get me wrong. I don't go to my race as the primary, but I definitely will always harp on the culture because the culture is extremely important. And like you said, that used to be a 50s thing among a lot of the Anglo-Saxon, the black folks here, because that used to be them too. And it seems to be fading away among the blacks and the Anglo-Saxons here, because the Slavic whites, they still maintain the same thing too.
Yeah.
So
are you Berber? Are you Saudi?
Berber? No, that's from Northern Africa. That's from the Arabs of Northern Africa, Sudan, Libya, Egypt.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm glad you noticed that, 'cause a lot of people don't know what that is, and I have to explain to them, no, that's Arab. And if you look at the rest of my name, it's Hispanic. Angel Flores Hernandez. It's a long name, but yeah. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and that's why I harp so hard on culture in this, because a lot of the things we look at are all downstream from culture. You gotta have the culture to be your foundation for all the other issues we face in any society. It doesn't matter what society you're in.
Sure. And
It
culture
has to be there.
I mean, culture changes. I
Yeah,
mean, it's changing over there as well.
yeah,
But even I mean, it's the thing about China that's really interesting to me, and Japan's kind of the same way, but China's really done an amazing job of it over its history. Is they will often just completely close down the country to foreigners. Like they do not want the culture disease spreading amongst them. They don't believe in it's a very interesting thing, and they're getting very close to doing it again. My impression is that the old heads, as they call them, are very unhappy with the way the youth are going, and so they're very it's a very um it's a very interesting thing. The old heads kind of want to shut down the country again. Um, but to what you were talking about, um, with the way things were, we also used to have poor people here, and it's very rare that we have actual poor people. So when I was in Beijing with my wife's parents, I remember that there was um, of course, they live in an apartment, and it's an apartment that is uh, walled. It's a walled community, right? There's a gate, and there's actually a Chinese military detachment that guards this establishment, right? Or this. I'm not sure who lives there other than my parents-in-law, but I'm assuming that it's somewhat attached to some military organization. I don't know, but it's just apartments, really. But they have a guard station, and we waved at them every day. I walked in, just, hey, how are you doing? Just going in. Um, when I was there was a guy who rode a bicycle by quite often. I saw him when we would come out and go, get a cab to go somewhere, whatever. And being a tourist and paying attention to things, I just asked about it. I'm like, what does he do? Well, he was a delivery guy, and he delivered Coke products. And I kind of knew that because he would ride by on this bicycle with stacks of Coke products over his head. I mean, they were like just all and they use tin cans there. They don't use 2 liters, and they don't have the bag and box systems or any of that kind of stuff. It's all aluminum cans. So the huge stacks of Coke products, and he would ride and deliver them to all of these little hole in the wall restaurants and eateries in all of these little communities, right? Because so there are places there where you can't drive a car down the street at all, and you certainly are not getting a delivery van down them. So this is how they get the stuff from the warehouse to the vendors. And he was the happiest dude I think I've ever seen while I was on vacation. He was, every time I saw him, he was like singing and he was happy and all that. This guy probably made the equivalent of $80 a month at that time, US. And that was, that's not a lot of money, but it's enough for him, right? He has a place to live, he has a bicycle, he has a job. I don't know what else he had, but he was happy every time I saw him. Like guys singing, having a great time. And we used to have people like that here that just worked and lived and didn't need to make $1 million. Just happy just being there, just happy being alive, having a place to sleep, having a life, right?
And they had meaning that wasn't materialistic.
Yeah. Right.
And that's why I've really gotten into this space that you encompass, Grid. You know, I got here through Andrew, and I got, you know, and that sphere, because y'all talk more about the issues that are actually happening, and the degeneracy, and how the weakening of the family has occurred, and things of that nature, and you know why it is important too. I mean, what's causing this? I mean, the redefinition of what a family is, you know, the abolishment of the nuclear family, all that feminism stuff. Is that what's causing it? I'm not entirely sure if it's just that, or if what the explanation is of why it's all eroded, and why it's only people from foreign countries bringing their culture here that still have that intact. Because it's not intact for me, I can tell you that. I mean, well, to some degree it is for my family, but you know, it's not. It's not like what it was, you know, 50 or 60 years ago. That's for sure.
Well, I feel like that probably in the 60s, we finally convinced ourselves that we were the richest country in the world. Right? We you know, and I get that Andrew says it was the, you know, the birth control and the drugs and all of that, but we went from where, you know, back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, man, if you had a car, dude, you were a badass, right? If you you know, like, everybody knew who had a car in town, right? Because most people didn't, and they walked everywhere. They didn't even have horses, or they took a train, right? Or a streetcar, something like that. We went from that through the 50s, got into this early 60s, everything's kind of going okay, and then all of a sudden you know, the car manufacturers figure out how to really push out cars. Right? You think about 64, all of a sudden, you know, we're getting into these pony cars, muscle cars start coming out in about 65, 66. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, I can stretch it a bit, but I can afford a car. And we have this, and we convinced the average American that he was wealthy beyond measure. And he could sign his name on a dotted line and walk out of the dealership with a brand new car.
Yeah, but what caused that? Do you think it was just us winning World War II, or do you think it was us inflating the currency?
I think it came way after World War II. I think we're talking, you know, World War II ended in what, 49? Was it
40? I think it was 47, wasn't it?
40, yeah, it could have been 47. It's in that range. Yeah, like 49. So 49 happens. You have the servicemen come back, raising families, living in row houses. Yes, 45. Actually, just that's what my book says, 45. You have all of you have this stuff going on, row, you know, again, row houses, and and one car, and it was a starter car, right? You didn't go out and you didn't buy a nice car. You bought a starter car, and then you went to work, and you worked every day, and you saved your money, and then you kind of you know, kind of built up, right? And then the 50s happened. 50s get motorcycles are way more common. They're really cheap, but we're still our economy is still not. I mean, it's good. It's good. Not where it was. You know what I mean? Or not where it should. Not where it would get to. But the car companies and manufacturing, Westinghouse, were with refrigerators, right? They were convincing women everywhere that they need a refrigerator and a washing machine. You know, so Westinghouse is coming out, and they're doing this stuff, and then Buju Khan is correct. By the 60s, we're ordering homes through a Sears catalog, and moreover, now we have big enough and powerful enough vehicles that they are that they can, you can buy a camper and go from your home. You can go to the park or your family farm or some open land that nobody owns and camp. Right? This is crazy. This is crazy to think about. Never have we had time for such recreational things ever. Right? Like our recreation was basically just after work, and most everybody worked. I think it's just an interesting study through history, and then you get to the '60s, and American manufacturing has really got it down. And the pricing is good, the metal is cheap, the labor is cheap, everything's cheap, the economy is booming, everything's great. Military's, the military's a job again because you're coming out of the Korean War. Um, and we're actually, I guess we're rolling into the Korean War. Economy's good, Army's not too big, not too small, Navy's doing good shit. People are making money. And that's what happens when people make money. All of a sudden they feel like, hey, you know what? Do whatever I want. But we still had family values. There weren't as much there. I mean, there was always degeneracy, but it wasn't public degeneracy. We had public nuisance laws. We come out of the we come out of the age of the gangster into an age of more or less law-abiding citizens. And then the 60s happened. Mid 60s, everything's cool, man. Nice big cars, radio stations, rock and rolls coming out. And then birth control. Birth control happens. Birth control on a large level. Now, you have to understand it. It didn't. It started out as just like, this it's a novelty. It didn't really happen. Doesn't care. Moving forward a few years, 66, 67, 68. Now it's like almost everywhere, right? And
Yeah,
drugs
free love, man.
Yeah, drugs are everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Condoms are everywhere. Everybody, now nobody wants to work. Now it's the age of it doesn't really matter. Right? It doesn't really matter, man. Just be you, bro. It's cool. It's cool. Let's just sit here for a while, man. It'll be cool. And they did. They fucking did. They were driving their beatnik VW van, trucks all over the place. You buy a brand new Volkswagen for like $3,000. And that happened. And we never went back. We never fixed it. Next thing you know, we're in the Vietnam War. We got a bunch of hippies at home protesting the war. We got a bunch of people dying overseas for still don't understand why. Not really. I mean, I understand the arguments. I understand the context, but I don't really truly understand it because I think it was a mistake. I still do.
So what you're saying is that we didn't come to terms with the fact that we're an empire and we still, we don't really accept that
we still
we're
don't
acting like one. Yeah.
Still don't. We do not accept responsibility for our wealth. What we do is instead of accepting the responsibility of being a wealthy leading country and our citizens acting like let's contrast this to even Britain in the height of the 60s, in the height of the 70s, with all the drugs and everything else, Britain really didn't lose that sense of self, in the sense of work. They did have labor strikes back in like the 50s that affected all the automotive plants there, and it kind of ruined their automotive industry and gave them a reputation for being unreliable and all kinds of things. And or the Germans, right? The Germans were over there. They were building empires around automobiles and shipbuilding. And the entire time they're rebuilding after the war, they have one national goal, and that is to reestablish themselves as a maybe not a superpower, but certainly a wealthy country, and they've done that. I mean, they did that before the euro, but whatever. And culturally, I don't think we ever came to terms with it. And so what we did is we created an infantile nation of idiots that every subsequent generation since the 70s has been dumber and dumber and dumber. They're very intelligent. We have a lot of knowledge, but they're dumb as fucking rocks.
Yeah. They don't have meaning.
There's no meaning. Yeah, they're just dumb as fucking rocks.
No meaning or duty.
They don't appreciate the history. They don't know where they came from. They don't know where they're going. They don't understand family. They barely understand. The only reason they understand responsibility is because they want a paycheck. And this is why we are where we are. You look at China, on the other hand, half the country's poor. The other half is exceedingly wealthy. They have more millionaires than any other country, more new millionaires than any other country. Why is that? Why is a communist country minting more new millionaires than any capitalistic country?
Well, I think you mentioned it when you were talking about the culture of China, in that you said that they had actual poor people, they have actual really rich people, but there aren't a whole lot of the middle class people. They exist. Maybe the fact that we have a middle class is the reason why we're suffering. Maybe we need to have more of a stark contrast here, and once things start falling apart,
do you think we have a real middle class though anymore? Or
well, I'm middle class.
Do you think so?
Okay. Oh yeah.
All right. That's right. Sam's right about this. And this is what I was trying to express. Britain had a housing slum crisis where they built what do they call those? They're not row houses. Like, there's a name for those concrete monstrosities that you see. It was like the worst decision Britain ever made was to build those stupid ass houses. Yeah, China embraces capitalism. So this is a misnomer. You're getting sucked in by the press. They have no problem using slave labor. No, they do have poverty. They have people that live in poverty. Just because they don't make the life that you would want to make, you can't call them a slave class, because they don't have slaves there. They actually will kill you if See, the interesting thing is China's they're very black and white, man. It's either it's okay, you're cool, you're dead. I have a really interesting deal. What do you mean underpaid? What do you mean? This is a problem. This is an American way of thinking. Underpaid. How much should a guy who literally just staples a shoe together get paid?
Yeah, I have to challenge that idea as well, because my grandparents and my great grandparents, the work that we would see here as piss poor and very low paying, they would have saw as living like a king.
Yeah,
and they did see it as living like kings. My great grandmother, making the money she made in the 30s, the lowest wage that she was making then, which was piss poor by American standards, she saw that as being royalty.
Yeah. living life.
Until she married my great grandfather, who was in the railroad business. She didn't. So when she married my great grandfather, who was a part of the railroad industrialization to move out west, um, he was much older than her too. He's like 22 years older than her.
Mm.
She didn't see much of a difference in between the transition. To her, he was a wealthy man in American standards, but to her,
this is a Western ideal. I'm sorry, I hate to
yeah,
interrupt, Angel, but
sorry,
this is a Western ideal. We
yeah,
used to do that here. We used to do
yeah,
the idea of an 8-hour workday is dumb. It's stupid. It's made our country weak. I never worked an 8-hour workday. I felt lucky if I got off with a 14-hour work week or work day.
yeah. I have to agree. I've never worked 8 hours. I've always worked 10 to 13 minimum.
Why we are weak. This is why we have problems. This is what we're talking about. Look, China has a lot of really bad things going on, right? China can tell them whatever they want, but China, Vietnam, Thailand, these have people. They don't have a lot of choices. They don't need lawyers. Why do you think workman's comp is reasonable? I've never thought workman's comp is reasonable. That's the dumbest thing. That's literally the second dumbest institution in our society. Is that somebody is going to do their job badly and I'm going to pay them because they fucked up. That's what workman's comp is. Otherwise, it's just insurance. Why would you? I mean, workman's comp never made any sense to me at all, except as a bureaucrat, I guess. You guys may have a different opinion on that. You're welcome to shout me down.
Well, no, in terms of government intruding on the insurance business, there's no reason why the government should be involved in that. The individual marketplace could handle workman's comp insurance without involving the government. If employees wanted to purchase it, they could purchase it while they're working and then reap the benefits if they're unemployed. I mean, the free market is what created a lot of these excesses anyway. And when the free market stopped working, we started devaluing the currency in the 70s hardcore. And that's one of the things that I point to is what caused the degeneracy and the decadence is the fact that if you had $1 in 1970, it would be worth 8 cents in American dollars now.
Yeah.
And the people who have had assets that they've been able to hold on to increased in value, but a large portion of the society doesn't have that benefit. And so they have to basically be wage slaves now. And,
wage slaves. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's an unsustainable trajectory. And I don't think people really appreciate the fact that, it's going to not function soon. Like, it's like the thing that everybody knows, like we can't have, $35 trillion worth of debt and currency that is constantly devalued because historically speaking, that's not, not sustainable. And it's just a matter of time. And all these problems will go away.
But we have been sustaining it. We've been sustaining it since 1980, bro.
Yeah, we have, and there's more wealth to take, but eventually it's going to disappear.
Maybe, man. I don't know. I think there's too many. It's too easy to print money, and regardless of how what you believe about that, it's just too easy to print money, and people are going to spend the money that's printed, and they just pay what. The frog will never boil, but the water will keep getting hotter. But the frog will never boil. That's my opinion. Arthur Diet, listen, here's the thing. How many times have you worked a 14-hour shift with maybe a 30-minute break where you slam down some food and the entire rest of the time you were moving? Now, what you're going to say is, yeah, but I make a lot of money for doing that. You make a lot of money because you have a highly specialized skill that people are more than willing to pay for. Otherwise, you wouldn't make the money. It wouldn't matter. So why is it that a guy riveting shoes together or making blue jeans or pouring steel, why is it that all of a sudden he gets an 8-hour day, which I'm not against. I'm just saying, if you choose to have an 8-hour day, that's an additional 4 hours of pay you don't get. I'm just saying. Take it how you
Yeah,
leave it.
I'm with you on that. I worked in public accounting for a long time, and I mean, I did over 100-hour weeks constantly.
Sure.
And it's one of those things where you have to make a choice and feed your family or whatever, and it's we're decadent is what it is. We're just so accustomed to having things that we didn't earn.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I'm saying is that we have never accepted being the wealthiest country, but we are. And by not accepting it and not taking responsibility for it, we've squandered it. I guess that's the easiest way to say it, squander. How do I feel about Fresh and Fit saying JFK being the last American president? All sins are puppets of elite country, global order. I don't believe in a global order. You guys, all the conspiracy theories start falling apart because nobody works that well together. Nobody. So, it just doesn't work, especially among people. So here's the thing. If me and two other guys sit down at a table, we're all worth the same amount of money. We're going to try and screw each other. Guaranteed, 100%. Now, we'll work together for a short term. We'll work together towards a singular mission. But at some point, I'm going to try and take all of their money. It's just the way the game works. So I don't believe that. Speaking of prisons, the work opportunity tax credit seems unfair. It gives companies credits for hiring ex-criminals.
I don't know. That's a pain to administer. The work opportunity tax credit.
Yeah,
It
if that was like if that was just a little clearer, I could get behind that because I think that unfortunately, well, we can get into that in a minute. But right, okay. My point, right. So why is it that you are in defense of somebody making tennis shoes? Because you get paid more. So what? You went $400,000 in debt to get there, and that guy didn't. That's how that shit works. So I like Joseph here. Joseph's pretty based. He's pretty good. I do agree that the tax code is way too complicated. I also agree that, so I have a problem with our prison system in this country. That was another thing that happened between the 30s and the 60s is our penal system went from a system of a correction system where you basically you did your time, you got out. It went from that to you're never out. Once you're in the system, you're in the system, you're never out.
Yeah, the education system to penal system pipeline is a real thing too, because they're educating people so poorly now and regimenting them to the point where they're more, I guess, more used to the rigid structure in a prison than they are in the real society.
Yeah,
People are feral.
Have you seen the stats on what it cost to get out from underneath a single DUI?
What is it, like 10 grand?
10 grand just for the court cost.
Yeah.
But it doesn't end there because they will put you into counseling. And if you miss a counseling session, which most people that have jobs will probably miss one. If you miss one, you still have to pay for it and you may have to start over completely. And even if you don't do that, you have to have an interlock device on your vehicle that you have to pay for. If you do something weird, if that thing goes off or you can't start your car or something, you can't, you're screwed there. I had a friend of mine and he was supposed to have something like 3 months with the interlock device and like a week of counseling. It took him a year to get out from underneath it and thousands of dollars. Like it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. The entire system is literally designed to keep them in the system as much as possible. And I don't understand how people get like 3 or 4 DUIs.
Well, it's really good. And this goes back to stuff that got me into this is the
This is I'm sorry, one second, yeah, and I'll let you continue. This is inaccurate. We are still the largest manufacturing country in the world. We are a small market for China, considering. However, they did build their wealth from modernizing, but they just have a tremendous number of people that need stuff. If we had 5 billion people that we could just sell to, we would be also we are very wealthy. So I'm sorry.
So
Continue. I'm actually going to be offline. I'm going to be off camera for just 1 second. So you guys continue forward. I'm going to mute my mic as well. So you guys have, I'm going to be probably like 3 or 4 minutes. I just got to get another drink. So
yeah. All right. So Angel, a lot of the stuff that Grid's been talking about is related to the trade, the Faustian bargain of trading security for your liberty, whether it be financial security or things of that nature, where we have all of these systems set up so that people can be safer, like that interlock DUI, or even some of the regulations that he's talking about on businesses are basically like trying to create a safety net for people in exchange for taking some of their money. And one of the interesting things that got me into this specific space from the places that I'd been before was the notion that women who vote overwhelmingly for security instead of liberty, whereas men, on the other hand, prefer liberty over security. And a lot of the changes that have come in our legal system and our the laws that have come into place since women had the right to vote have accelerated that. And I kind of wanted to know what you thought about, the impact of women voting on our system.
Yeah, I would say that if women have the luxury of voting for voting away liberty for security, because they don't have to pay the price of such policies. They don't. If you have to fight in the wars that you vote for or vote people in that put into play those wars, you're gonna think a lot differently, and you're gonna participate a lot differently in that system. The reason why men vote for liberty is because we have responsibility attached to the policies we put in place. We always have. We understand that. We understand our asses, our skin is what's in the game if things come crashing down based upon poor policy we put into place. Women do not have to deal with that. Women don't have to deal with that because the safety nets they put into place protect them overwhelmingly over men. Just like the fact that we don't have our voting rights until we sign up for selective service. They have automatic voting rights no matter what. Most women don't even know that. Most women think, oh, the government just makes you sign up for selective service and that's it. It's like, no, we don't get to vote until we do sign up for selective service. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, that's how it works. Well, that's your fault. You're men. You put that system. I'm like, okay, you're missing the argument here, because if you had that same obligation, that same civic duty tied to every political decision you make in your life, you would rethink a lot of the policies and decisions you make when it comes to our political structure. That's just the fact.
Yeah, so let me run this one by you. So Sam in the chat put something interesting in there, which is kind of where I was going with it. You went straight to the selective service duty argument, And I've heard that a lot, but women have a nature that's different than the nature of men. And Sam put in there that women have higher levels of agreeableness, which means that they want to, make things a nest. They want to, have everybody be friends and kumbaya and make things safe for everybody, because that's their nature as females, because they've evolved to be that way. And men are more risk takers, and they have to build the structures of the society that we live in, because we've evolved that way. And I think there's something that is evolutionary in women and men that has created these differences. And I don't make arguments based on religion, since I'm an atheist, but I think that it's more of a nature issue, where the systems that we've put in place, and this experiment that we've had, where we've basically let everyone have the vote, is a major reason why our liberties have eroded so rapidly, and why we've taken the path of least resistance instead of I guess prior cultures that were the leading empire, which were run by strong patriarchies. And I don't know if I'm spinning yarn there, or if you have anything to bounce off of that, but those are the thoughts that I had on that.
Oh, I saw what Sam said, and I agree. I agree with what he said, which is why I'm hard on men a lot. This is why I'm very hard on men in that regard, because, well, who took advantage of the women's agreeableness to give them that authority to vote in the first place? It was men. It was the rich industrialists at the time, the Rockefellers and all them pressured politicians to draft that kind of legislation to get women to that point to vote, because they understood that. They understood the agreeableness. They understood that if they could get women into the workforce, that you could lower wages, you can take advantage of the agreeableness of these women in the workforce, which is why it's the trope right now. The big trope is that women are willing to serve their bosses but not serve their husbands. Where do you think that trope came from? Sam's correct in that regard. He's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't look, as a person who comes from two cultures that are highly patriarchal and still are to this day. I can't help my Anglo-Saxon brothers in that regard, because that's your culture to fix. You got to fix that. That's just the reality. We are dealing with the same problems you are when it comes to feminism, but we still have patriarchal order going on in our cultures, and it does have no problem stomping down hard on it still. We're not afraid about being called racist or bigots within our own culture. That doesn't fly. You go to throughout Central America and South America, if a person says you're racist, you may not come back to America if you say that. You don't say stuff like that down there, because the culture down there doesn't tolerate that still. Don't let the left-wing media tell you, oh, Latinos are very left-leaning. No, they're left-leaning mostly in economics, but very socially conservative. And that's the mistake they make when they say that. So don't get that twisted. And it's the same thing with the Arabs. The Arabs were socially conservative, but liberal when it comes to economics. So, and this is why it's a cultural issue. And I agree with Sam, but it also the responsibility comes with duty, and duty is tied to the culture that supports that duty. So it's a chain link. Those are the chain links necessary and tied to these things. So I agree with both you, Anson, and Sam. And of course, my argument on top of that, there has to be duty tied to it, but the duty is always reflective of the culture it's tied to. Because duties can be very weak if they're tied to a weak culture. The culture's weak that supports the duty can be very weak. So you always got to have that foundation. So that's really all I can say on that for that one.
Yeah. So Arthur Dyer put a question in there, and Grid is back from his break there, getting his sandwich or whatever that is. It looks tasty.
That's how you do it. You got to get a sandwich, man.
Well, it's water and cookies.
Yeah, liquid death. Man, there you go. I drink those down all day. Love them.
Yeah. So, Arthur Dye wanted to know what we thought about qualifications for being able to vote. 'Cause since we were talking about the differences between men and women and the trade-off between security and liberty, that women tend to choose security over liberty. So, I don't know. It's your show, Grid. So I'll stop running it while you're. Oh, actually, you're still eating, aren't you? So I'll
Go ahead, man. No, you're doing great. I like what
Yeah.
you're saying. I will
Yeah.
jump in.
Yeah. So this is hard because we live in a culture now that thinks that you have the right to vote, and without even considering what the outcome is. So I don't think that all people should vote, and thankfully most people for most elections don't vote. I'm really glad that there isn't people actually 100% participation or 80%, or I've had local elections in my city where 5% of the electorate will vote for city elections, which is for the a city the size of Huntsville, it's ridiculous. But the I think it would be best to limit the vote to people who own land, to be honest with you, because
Old school, then.
they've actually
You're going
money
back to the much
into-
more traditional, right? So the
Yeah.
much more traditional way was that it was in the 1800s, right before the end of the 19th century.
Right. Yeah, and they have to have citizenship, based on having had parents who were citizens, and that you were born here. Instead of birthright citizenship, your parents have to be citizens, or you have to become naturalized. I think that going back to the way it was initially, with the exception of the restrictions that were based on immutable characteristics like sex or race, because limiting people based on those metrics it's not a determinant of your ability to actually have any kind of real, I guess, love and appreciation and responsibility and duty. But land ownership is, if you actually own something, you're going to want to take care of it. That's why home ownership's a good metric for whether or not you vote more conservative or less conservative. If you're living in an apartment, you don't really care about anything, you're just some silly college kid, you're going to vote more Democrat because you haven't really worked for anything. But if you own something, that means you worked for it. So that's where I am on that.
You ever watch Starship Troopers?
Yeah, it's a good book.
Service guarantee citizenship. Is that where you want to go, Grid?
What were the ways to gain citizenship? Born into it, because your parents owned money, owned land, and had money. You could buy your way in.
Military service.
Or military service.
Yep.
There were 3 ways to get citizenship. Your sex organs had 0 to do with it.
And I like, a lot of people have been throwing that idea around, and I do like the idea. It's just that a lot of people would believe that, a lot of people currently believe that's just a mock version of what the Germans used to be, right? But I do like the idea, though.
That we're not supposed to talk about.
Yeah, that's why I gotta avoid that TLS problem there. So it's best I can say it.
Grid, you're more libertarian than you think, because Robert Heinlein was absolutely libertarian. A lot of his literature.
Well, he was libertarian towards the end for sure, mainly because of his proclivities.
Yeah.
With regards to his female companionship.
Yeah. Yeah, and he has a really cool middle name.
What was his middle name? I don't recall it right off the top of my head.
Anson.
Robert A. That's all I ever knew. Robert A. All right. That's no wonder he hit it when just said A. I'm kidding. That's fine.
But I do agree, though, that some kind of civic duty should be conducted, or you should have to fulfill some kind of civic job role as a requirement to be able to vote. land ownership. There's a lot of ways, a lot of things you could throw in there that could count as some kind of civic participation in your nation, right? It
How
would
about
really come down to what we would agree on that, right? Like I said, military, land ownership, heck, marriage, family. Like the man has the vote of the house. Things. I mean, those used to be things that used to be in the old ways, right? We could
Uh-huh.
always come up with new civic duties now that could apply to a much broader base while still helping to progress the state of the union, the state of our nation. All right. Like Anson, like you were pointing out land ownership, but let's get rid of the antiquation of basing it based on immutable characteristics, right? But you're still keeping the core, but you have to update it to modernity, right? Things like that.
Well, yeah, excluding people based on the way that they were born is, I mean, it's prideful, and
Mhm.
according to your Christian ethic grid, pridefulness is the sin of Satan. So
Yeah.
I think Aphrodite mentioned in the chat how, as a doctor, she served more time being a doctor than most people have done in selective service. And I thought about it and I said, well, couldn't we make being a medical professional or a medical role that helps a nation, right? Couldn't we make that one of the things a person could choose to do as a civic duty to earn the right to vote? Things like that. Those are important for a society in
She
modernity.
also owns property.
Mm,
So,
mhm.
you know, that's how that works. I no exclusion for disabled people. Sorry. That's the way it is. I'm heartless, aren't I? I am a heartless bastard. Have you guys ever read a book called it's a series of books, Bio of a Space Tyrant by Piers Anthony?
no,
No, I
I've never
haven't.
even heard of that.
Fucking great series. You should read it. It's an interesting dynamic because it's got all of the elements of a space thing where with all kinds of like weird sex things going on and wars and battles and all this stuff, really, right? But in the end, he has to become a tyrant in order to save the universe because it goes so far away from what it should be, right? And it's got a lot of like, it's Piers Anthony's not a shining example of pretty much anything, I don't think, but it's a good series of books, not and kind of worth reading. I did enjoy it, but mostly it's it's kind of a different example of what really not to do, except be a tyrant. Nothing wrong with being a tyrant. I don't know that I really care about what people like when it comes to decisions about how the country's going to survive. What you like is far less important than getting things done and making things happen. This was the Miles Standish approach back on Plymouth Rock. You either worked or you didn't eat. Why? Because it was important, right? We needed that. So you can't, I feel like that we're a bunch of weird people.
Yeah, well, we're discussing things from the position of great wealth. Even if you're poor in this country, you're still wealthier than most of the other people in the entire
Yeah, I was
world.
going to talk about that, but you guys you guys are so interesting. I forgot all about it. It's interesting that, and I made the discussion about the Chinese thing earlier because I like to use that fellow as an example because he was perfectly happy and he had basically nothing. I'm not even sure the guy. I mean, I don't know. I didn't follow the guy home or anything, but most of the guys like him, they might have a small TV. They live in a very small room, right? They use a communal shower, communal toilet, very little like private space, right? And they're happy because they're alive. And they get to hang out with their friends. And he gets to work. He actually gets to work. I mean, do you understand that while in America most of us don't want to work, most of the rest of the world wants to work because that's how they survive. Weird. And but this fellow really struck a chord with me, because in America, do you know what? I mean, when was I can't recall the last time I saw an actual poor person. Now, I've seen homeless people that have mental health issues that live on the street with no means of supporting themselves because they're they have mental health issues, right? I've seen that. I'm talking about actual poor people, guys that were working a job. They didn't drink themselves to death, and they didn't make bad decisions. They didn't make really great ones either, and they're just poor. Poor here is that you only have 2 cars. You have small, old TVs in every room, and you have the budget, the most budget cable package possible for your internet, right? Oh, and you have a 3-year-old iPhone instead of last year's model. That's what poor is. Right.
Well, yeah, you're right to a certain extent. I'm gonna go back to the money printing because it's related to this. So poor people are living beyond their means because we have the ability to basically inflate our currency and then move the costs of that inflation out to the entire world. But that doesn't mean that we're economically actually better. It just means that we have the illusion of being better, and we're burning up resources that we don't actually have that will eventually disappear. And so we're actually a lot poorer than we realize. It's just that we're acting like we're not. But yeah, the problem still exists that you're talking about how people are they're soft.
Yeah, and I think that unfortunately, families aren't hard enough on each other as well. If you're going to build an empire for your family, you should make it clear that there is a chance that they don't inherit any of it if they don't choose to carry on the duty of carrying on your traditions and values. You didn't work to build an empire for your family just because. You did it because there's a legacy you're wishing to leave behind. And the legacy is not just your wealth, it's the duty that's tied to your traditions and values. That's what's tied to it. You didn't just build it to build it. You built it with that as the premise. And a lot of folks I know and I've seen, they talk about wealth generation as for yourself as the main source of self-improvement, but the reality is the wealth is meant to be there not just to improve you and your family's state, but as an enticement to tell your kids and their kids to continue what you started. And if you don't, or you see that they're not doing that as they grow up, there's a chance that you can just strip that all away. If there's a threat of loss there, the children and the grandchildren are really going to have to think hard do they want to turn away from what you set forth and start their own thing? Or do they want to take what you have and grow it and run with it? But you don't really ever have to face that if the parents give the impression that it's guaranteed to them. The inheritance of the empire is guaranteed. My grandfather set that forth when he built the empire, and when he died, he changed his will at the last minute, and he punished my mother, my aunts, and my uncle heavily for deviating from the morals and values he set forth with the way they lived their lives. And they ended up getting a penance, a small penance, versus my grandmother and his church got the majority of the empire. So they learned the hard way. And that's the way it should be. You should never be guaranteed access to your parents' empire if you didn't carry forth what they set forth. And I think that needs to be a very real thing that families do when they're working at that high of a level.
Yeah, and I see that too play out in people that I know whose parents take care of them even though they're in their 30s or 40s because they haven't matured to the point of being able to take care of themselves and instead of parents letting their children fail and learn from their mistakes, they're keeping their children soft by protecting them from the consequences of their own actions. And that's similar to what you're talking about, except on a more drastic level. Some of that extension of youth and that hippie culture old Grib was talking about was made possible by parents facilitating it because they had the means to do it instead of teaching responsibility for actions to their kids.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I think that that's one, like I said, we have great wealth. Generically, we do not take responsibility with it or for it. For example, Sam makes a great comment here. Threatening to disinherit my children from the wills and trust proved to be an effective motivator for them. Why?
Absolutely.
Because if you look at the way kids have been operating for the past 50 years, 60, I mean, they're basically just blackmail the parents, right? And I really, well, that's another subject, but I think that we're, I think in modern times, at least, we're a victim of our own success. Part of that victimship is voting, which I missed out how you got from there to here, but I agree with it. Part of that victimship is we just continuously allow people to vote for things that they want rather than the things that will work. Also, our politicians are similarly the same, right? We get politicians because we think they'll work, but we don't know that they'll work, right? We don't understand them because we either are too lazy to find out or we just trust somebody else's opinion and we don't really do any research ourselves. So, yeah.
Yeah. Because as the third generation down from my grandfather's empire, when none of us see any of that. We don't see any of the empire. None of it came to us. And that's not to blame on my grandfather. None of us, like me and none of my cousins or siblings, we don't blame my grandfather for any of it because we look at my mom, my mother, my aunts, and my uncle on that side of it, and we say that's on them. They messed that up. It was their duty to carry forth what he set out as the patriarch of the family, and they didn't do it. They failed, and we have no ill will towards that. Instead, we're just starting our own little empires then, and we'll start over and we'll do it again. We'll try it again. That's all. There's no ill will there at all. We understand why he did it, and we respect him for it because that's what we would do. We would do the same with our kids. I know I talked to my son about that, and he does this. He's going to do the same thing. My brother's going to do the same thing with my nephews. We just said, okay, we'll start over again. We'll lay out the groundwork again, and if our kids don't carry on our traditions and our values set forth in the family, then they'll be cut away too. We'll just give the money or whatever we built to our church and our wives, because the wives automatically inherit it if they did their duty to raise the family, just like my grandmother did. She automatically got taken care of for the rest of her life because she did her duty. She took care of grandkids, kids, grandkids, and even in some cases some great grandkids. So she deserved it. As long as duties are met, those are the ones who will rightfully should inherit the fruits of the labor of the empire being built.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You should write a book, Grid.
I don't know, man. That seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, write a book. You can sell it through your channel here. All the wisdom that Angel is providing would do excellent in the book.
Angel's done a really great job tonight. He's you two guys are really good conversationalists to have on, because a lot of people just kind of agree with me or can't hold a conversation, and it's really good to have people that agree with or that also agree with me, but also when they disagree with me, they can push back and say, "Hey, I don't think you're looking at this right," or whatever. That's very valuable, very valuable. So, I'm
That's funny,
just
Grid,
kind of
because I was about to just say, sorry. I was about to say, I might send my son your way too, because he called while I was talking to you guys. He wanted to
Yeah.
talk about some politics. And I told him, well, I'm on a call right now talking politics with some other gentleman right now. And he goes, who? And I said, I might send them your way.
send the link. Send the link.
Yeah. I know it's too late now, but I told him in the future, I'll send him the link and he can get in on the combos. Because me and my son talk about this stuff all the time.
We'll be back tomorrow night. Tomorrow night show will probably be a little bit more relationship than we kind of had to go down this road with the debate yesterday and all that. We'll probably do more. I tried to do a little bit of relationship stuff earlier, but it just kept getting diffused. And so nobody, it's no fun when the grenade doesn't go off. Right. So it's just kind of that way. So what do you guys so just kind of like a last take, right? What do you got? How do you guys feel about the way and Anson kind of brought it up earlier, the way that Congress has ceded their power to the executive branch and the SCOTUS is not really holding anyone accountable right now for that. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I mean, it's been happening for generations slowly. I don't. The path of least resistance is what legislators will choose, and they're elected locally by people, and as long as they're bringing home the bacon, they'll get reelected, and they'll get reelected if they're doing the things that people with money and power tell them to do, because that's how they get reelected. And as the congressional districts, the seating of the power, is related to the size of the congressional districts, because more money is required for these congressmen and women to get elected. And as when the congressional districts were set in terms of the number, it's like 400 and something, instead of being increased every year by population size or related to the census, they've been locked in place. So the districts, the vote of each individual person has been diluted, and the power of the people with the money to get the people elected has increased. And that's another one of the structural changes that occurred. And so these people are doing the bidding of the people with the money who get them elected and trying to take the least controversial path possible. And so in order to have the congressmen and women take their power back, I mean, there would have to be a complete change in the system. So it's baked in. It's not something that's going to change. And we, like I said before, we have more of a fascist system because of the way that we're set up now. So I don't know. That's my cynical take on it. I'm very glass half empty. So
yeah, I've noticed.
Yeah, I would say that unfortunately, the Supreme Court is only one little hair away as it stands from just any entity, group, state, whatever, simply saying no and just doing what they want anyway to the fullest, to just show that the Supreme Court, unfortunately, is the emperor with no clothes already. The Supreme Court doesn't have an enforcement arm naturally built in to enforce anything that it sets forth. It's totally relies on the honor system in believing that whatever ruling they make, whoever is on the opposite end of that ruling will simply fall in line and do the right thing, the ethical thing. And all it's going to take is whoever's on the other end of any ruling to one day just say, no, not going to do it. And there's nothing you can do about it. And that would be it. There's nothing the Supreme Court could do about it. It would be the total emperor of no clothes moment. And that's it. The institution will be dead as it stands, unfortunately. And I think we're going to have one of those moments fairly soon. I'd say in the next 15 years, we're going to have that moment where an entity is just going to stand firm and say, no, nothing you can do to us. What are you going to do about it? And the circuit court's just going to throw its hands up in the air and go, oh, there's nothing we can't do about it, because they don't have an enforcement arm. Unlike the legislative branch and the executive branch, they all have enforcement powers. They have enforcement entities. Supreme Court doesn't.
Though, I mean, in theory, the Supreme Court has the entire U.S. law enforcement division,
which are under the directive of the president.
Right.
So if the president at the time is a Democrat and the court's all conservative, and the other entity on the ruling is a liberal one, and they say no, and the president at the time is liberal, he could just say, yeah, too bad. What are you going to, nope, I support what they're doing in defying the Supreme Court. Sorry. And then there you go. And it can work vice versa too. If it was a liberal court, and then it was a conservative issue on the other end being defiant, or a conservative president could do the same thing. So it could happen either way.
They won't have to do that, Angel. In that circumstance, they would just pack the court like FDR was doing.
They would just dissolve it as an institution at that point, because if you pack the court, it's meaningless.
Yeah, and that's basically the same outcome that you're talking about. Only it still has the veneer of a respectable institution that people think is legitimate.
Yeah.
Guys, it's been a great discussion tonight. I do apologize earlier for my me having to take care of the based Oracle thing. I know that some people are going to think it's unfair that I banned the guy from the channel, but until he resolves his nonsense with Andrew, I'm unwilling to be a part of that, and I don't think I should be subject to it, so I'm not going to be. And this is how that happens. Everyone else, I really appreciate all who joined and have stayed this long. I know that politics is not for everyone, and I know that politics can sometimes be very dry and not very interesting. But hopefully, we've made it a little more interesting tonight. I'm going to go ahead and call it. I'm going to end, when I end the stream, we'll redirect over to Verbal Combat. And I'm going to watch Verbal Combat for a few minutes before I go to bed, and then I may join depending on what Easy's got going on. We'll see. I'm feeling especially spicy tonight, so who knows? Anyway, you guys have a great night. It's been wonderful having everyone on. Enjoy Verbal Combat, and get off my lawn.